There I am. I'm so excited to do this, man.
Oh, me too. There have been people in my life who are in your life who have wanted us, you and I, to have this conversation at a certain point.
I wanted to say I always love talking to you.
Oh, thanks.
And it's very Super Soul Sunday to do it outside.
Yeah,
I like that.
Good.
It's very cool.
I was thinking about you in designing this because I thought, well, this is the launch of my second season. And there's a visual component now. And, of course, I just wanted to do something that's beautiful, and I don't want to have any cars distracting us.
Yep.
Any sounds. Now, we could set the stage perfectly, and you're just covered in bugs now.
I'm riddled with bugs.
But I wanted to set the stage also because I feel like you are in scenarios often, including your own podcast, where you're indoors and you're plugs and transistors, and you probably do this on other people's shows exactly the same way. And I thought, especially you ramping up to this release of your special next week, you're probably going to be doing that a lot, and this could be
This is a nice gift. Yeah, no, it is. But I sincerely always really love the times that we've gotten to talk. And
me too.
I pick up on, I make it about me. I'm very good at picking up. No, I feel your openness and your compassion and your humor, and it's great.
Thanks.
So, yeah, no, I really appreciate it.
It's great, man.
Yeah, I always, whenever I see you at the farmer's market, it's just one of those things. Boy, I hope it's not just your kind face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes as an experiment, I go, like, I'll say to Val, like, I just don't vibe with that person. And then sometimes she'll say, like, what if he looked like, and then she names a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a humbling, you're like,
yeah, that's nice.
Sometimes how a person is shaped, I'm not talking about body weights, or I'm just saying their face and
Angular.
their eyes.
Yeah.
And
right.
it just does something to you. And that's completely unfair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's completely unfair.
Do you not feel you have one of those faces?
No, I think I do. In fact, I think a lot of comedians, you know, I'm interested. Fucking throw me in the pool. No, but I am interested in like mask work, like tribal mask work. And one of the things I think is interesting about it is people will put on like the Loki mask, not literally Loki, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like a wicked mask.
Yeah.
And the key is then you look at your reflection and then you behave accordingly. You behave as the demon guy, the mischief guy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, but that's, you know, anyone can make this jump. To what degree are we doing that? I look in the mirror and I see a guy who would behave as I'm behaving right now. That would be like, I always enjoy talking to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like Mark Maron looks in the mirror. I'm not shitting on Mark. And he is a guy that would be like, there's bugs out here or whatever.
Right.
And we love it. We're like, he's doing
the mark.
He's doing the mark. Even his name, Mark Maron.
It's like a marin.
It's perfect.
It's like a marinade.
Marinate.
Yes.
He's marinating in his own.
Yeah, in his own juices.
I've been saying this lately. Like, how much less popular would John Mulaney be if his name was John Mahoney? It's just, I would say 30%. 30% less popular. At least.
It's funny you
That's
bring
conservative. And I'm so Pete Holmes that you can't even talk about it.
Yes.
Right?
It's so funny you bring up both of those people because in the last week, Mulaney and Marin, I've listened to for inspiration.
Wow.
And I haven't like sought them out for inspiration necessarily, but I saw that Mulaney was on Colbert and there was an extended interview on YouTube. And so I hadn't watched late night TV in a while, and I really enjoy Mulaney and where he's at now. And so I wanted to sit and watch these two minds because I'd heard Stephen Colbert also recently say some really beautiful things when he was interviewed by Anderson Cooper about life and about what to take seriously and what to hold precious in this world. And so I thought, well, this will be an interesting talk. And it was such a conscious discussion that was humorous, that was that they felt interlocked. And I watched these things. I seek certain things out, like the Marin thing that I watched was his old conversation with Louis, pre-controversy. And Marin's in this weird position because Louis like the biggest comedy star in the world at that point, and Mark's been trying to get a hold of him and can't get a hold of him, and he's like now, even though they came up together, he's now in this lower totem pole situation with his old friend.
Yeah.
You know, and you hear them navigating this relationship and where it's kind of gone wrong. And
No,
it's
I
like,
listened to that.
oh God.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's a two-parter.
Yes, right.
Yeah, two-parter.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. It was a two-parter. And I seek out things like this when I'm in themes of times. Like right now, I'm launching something new, and this is an expression of it. And I might watch like the Red Hot Chili Peppers making of Blood Sugar Sex Magic with Rick Rubin or something, and footage. I might watch that because they were just about to sort of go into a bigger realm. Yeah. And I want to see what they look like and what kind of conversations are being had, because they don't know that they're about to be this huge thing. Right. You know, and it's so interesting to just get in there and study.
Well, you're picking up on people are more interesting before those things happen, or maybe as they're happening.
Yeah, right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I do almost as spiritual practice, as a form of spiritual practice. And to bring up spirituality with you is actually like what I hope to have the focus of this conversation be, with a lot of humor, because we find ourselves in a time where I think we're in America. It feels like there's a need to bring everyone together with the best of what we found so far, no matter what tradition you're in. Yeah, and there isn't sort of anyone leading the charge that we can all kind of get behind. And it's also like, where are we exactly? What have we learned? And I think a lot of people are looking to you and have as being one of the more spiritually minded comedians in the world. And so, and that's my whole world, is just, it's basically all spirituality, which is all comedy almost. It's just an absurd thing. The more you examine things down to a core level, how absurd life is. Yeah. In a beautiful way.
No, I agree.
And my dog was taking a shit this morning on Byron Katie's The Work, on her grass. And I was going, I don't know how Byron Katie feels about this. How would she want me to bury it in the earth or put it in a bag, and throw it in a garbage thing?
Dogs need to respect my book. Is that true? No. How do you feel when you believe that it's true? I feel threatened, violated, angry. How would you feel if you didn't believe it? Free, liberated. I'd laugh at the dog. Yeah. What's the opposite? Dogs don't need to respect my work. Well, that's, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I need to respect dogs. I mean, it's pretty. I do the work so much that it's pretty baked in, which is one of those nice things that she says in her book, is like, if you do the worksheets enough that you just kind of start doing it more automatically. Oh, nice. Which is great.
Right. It is great.
And I know you didn't ask, but I'll share this as much as I can. It's like things like, like you could say the higher level, like the higher surface level thought is like, my dad doesn't understand me. Let's say you feel that. Right. But I think you're not cracking yourself hard enough. You need to say, I'm not safe if my dad doesn't understand me, or I'm not good if my dad doesn't understand me. Right. Like that's way better to do the work on that. That's right. Because we can say your dad doesn't need to understand you, or you don't know if your dad understands you. That's fine. Yeah. But really get to that weeping wound inside you that goes, I'm not okay. Right. If someone doesn't understand me.
And then almost like the next step from there is to see where else, this feeling that you've discovered, or the root of something, where else do you see that in the world?
Yeah. How are you, unconsciously manifesting past traumas? Right. And you like them.
Right. That's the thing.
I was driving to do my podcast, I think it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And this is like a running joke on You Made It Weird, is that the person who rents my house, our friend Kate, never knows who the guest is. It's a joke between she and I now, because I can't stand it. And she knows that, and we laugh about it. And it's fun to catch your ego, or so sensitive. And it is. It just is. Yeah. She did it with Lewis Black. She goes, who's the guest today? And I was like excited. I was like, you're going to know this one. I go, Lewis Black. She didn't know who Lewis Black was. Wow. And I was like, why do we do this? Why do you ask? Right. She's asking in case it's Alana Glazer. That's the only reason she's asking. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll tell you if it's Alana Glazer. Right. But then I did the work on that, and I was like, again, jumping down, you go, I'm not safe if Kate doesn't know who my guest is. Like, and I really think there is like a mammalian threat there.
Yeah.
She doesn't know who my guest is. My show is shit. I'm going to lose my food, my mate, and my home.
Right. Wow.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And you really need to like unearth that.
Yeah.
So you can look at it.
Yeah.
I think most people's strategies, or at least I can say mine was for a very long time, was to ignore those like very strange, like a dog shouldn't shit on a book.
Right.
Go really deep.
Yeah.
We say this, Val and I say this all the time. The way's not around, it's through. You have to go through it. And make it talk.
Yes.
Like
right.
a hostage.
That's right.
And say, tell me what you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And that's when you can start getting a little more clear and laughing more.
Yeah. I just realized that you think that in my portrayal earlier about my dog taking a shit on the work, I was talking about the actual space, because we live on the block where the work is, her actual building. And so my dog was taking a shit in the grass, not on her book.
I pictured your dog shitting right on Loving What Is. And I was like, did that dog have an altercation with Byron Katie? You just meant on the lawn.
On the lawn, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair game. That's fair game.
Yeah.
And isn't it sort of, I was actually just thinking about how shit is a fertilizer. I am not the first person to notice this, but I was like, what a beautiful little clue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
You ever get overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Like that we live on a planet with an ocean, and when you look at the ocean, you're like, oh, it's all there.
Yes.
It's all there.
Right.
Like every metaphor you need.
Yeah, that's true.
You can get from the ocean.
Well, and that's
what a gift.
Right. And that's the thing, to bring that up, to further the point about sort of when we get to the root and seeing where we're doing that also, or where, you know, where that's alive in our life. Also, when I get to the root of something, I also pay attention to where it corresponds in nature.
Yeah.
You know, just where do I see this in nature? And that makes me feel better.
That's exactly right. Because my guest or my friend not knowing the guest, there is a natural correspondent. It might be sunlight. It's like I'm not getting enough. And there are before we take off and go into spiritual land, it is important, I think, and there's a paradox. The more I meet my psychological needs, which are just very earthy, very human and basic and not very fancy, but things like respect and things like dignity or kindness or love or affection, all these things. For me, creativity, approval, we're not supposed to talk about this, but those are at play. And the paradox is the more I meet those, the more I can slip more easily into a space where I see that that's all a joke.
Yes.
But it's hard to do if you're not.
Oh, totally.
It's the hierarchy of needs. Like if you're really hungry,
yeah,
it's really hard to be like, we're all one.
Oh, no.
It's more like you just ate my pizza. And that's okay.
My one piece of pizza.
You ate my one piece of pizza and you're going down. But if you're feeling, that's why, you know, there's different altitudes to fly at. And one of them just is, and I had Rabbi Mordecai Finley on the podcast, and he was gorgeous, just amazing. And he was like very compassionate. He was like, when your friend doesn't know who the guest is, your animal mind, which is part of you, goes all the way, catastrophizes and goes like, I'm a joke.
Yeah. Oh.
And he's like, and respect is important.
Yeah.
But you need to go in and talk to that part of yourself and say, no one, not just Kate, but no one means that. Yeah. She doesn't mean that.
Right.
But also, no one's the arbiter of your value.
Yeah.
You don't, or you know.
Right. That's
or you can
true.
say you've given the keys to someone else.
Right.
If my wife was like, I haven't known any guest this whole year, I might take that more. It might be more devastating because I've given her more authority over me.
Oh, and you guys are so close. I mean, it's just.
I also would know she means it, and she also means it for my good.
Yeah.
She's trying to help.
She's the best to see on a bike.
She is.
She's the best to see on a bike. I told her the other day.
That.
I was a block away from her, and I was walking the dog at dusk, and so the sun is fading a little bit, and then I know it's her from a block away. Yeah, because when she rides a bike, and I've seen you guys ride around town, she looks like the happiest person in the world.
Yeah, no, I know,
100%.
Sometimes we ride together, and I'll just look at her, and she just kind of looks like, I don't know, a nun going to get a loaf of bread or something on a cobblestone road. And she's just so happy. But, you know, I'm just so glad that people like Val exist.
No shit.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wanted someone to enjoy life with. And then I found somebody like, I don't know how to put it. She's incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
when we watch movies, we talk about whatever, the angles and the choices and stuff. So she's there. Intellectually, she's exactly there. And she can enjoy people who say something wrong, whereas I'd be like, "You fool!"
Really?
You know what I mean? Like I
More
used
so.
to not be able to enjoy The Big Lebowski because I was like, "This guy's a maroon."
No way.
It took spiritual work for me to enjoy The Big Lebowski,
Quote of the day.
right?
That's
And also,
so great.
and also Boogie Nights.
Oh.
I was like, shouldn't this idiot know he's doing cocaine and pornography and his life fell apart? I'm like, how am I supposed to feel bad for this guy?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
turned away from everybody.
Yeah.
They're giving him drugs and
Yeah.
making him, whatever.
You're
I'm
almost like applauding when he's getting stomped.
Yeah. No, no, I can't even and that premise. But it's actually because it's so heartbreaking. And sometimes I feel like hate, this is like a Ram Dass thing, hate is because it's too costly to love. Like it's easier to go like, you idiot.
Oh, totally.
And then, or this group, what a
Yes.
bunch of fucking idiots.
Yes. It's embarrassment. It's the hatred is like an expression of embarrassment of not knowing the thing and going like, I don't know that. So
I actually think I can't prove this,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling that like somebody who's very closed off to lots of different people is, with the right push, could
totally.
recognize their own, oh my God, I've been in love with these people.
Yes.
And it's too much to bear.
Yeah.
To think about what's happening to them.
Yeah.
So it's a protection. It's not an excuse.
Right.
It's a bad strategy. But
Yeah.
you go, fuck these idiots. That's
Yeah.
what I was doing with Boogie Nights. How am I
yes.
supposed? But then like watching Val, I used to be more like this. If I was hanging out with somebody and they said something wrong, like if they referred to a baker's dozen being 12, or if they referred... One time I made a joke. I said, we were talking about toothbrushes or something, and she said, well, I think this one's better than this one. And I go, yeah, that's what Big Toothbrush wants you to think. And she didn't know what I meant. And then I was like, like Big Pharma. And she still didn't know what I meant. And I was like... Goodbye.
Oh, thank God you're not the only one who has to over-explain things to the
That's so
partners
funny.
of the jokes. Yeah.
But Val, it's not Val. That wasn't Val.
Oh, it wasn't Val.
I wouldn't be with Val.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's not Val. I'm
It was
sorry.
a friend of ours.
Okay.
But Val is friends with those people, and she's taught me how to be friends with those people because I just had to soften. And like with Big Lebowski and like with Boogie Nights and like with people that might not get my stupid big toothbrush joke, why are you taking it so seriously? And why can't you delight that not everybody is like you? One time I took
Right.
MDMA, and the big epiphany was people don't have to be like me. And I know that sounds so basic.
Oh, no, that's
but that
great.
is what I needed to hear big time. And even as I say it now, I'm like, I'm still trying. Like even when I say my dad doesn't understand me, let's say there are times you can feel that way about your parents.
Yeah.
And I'm like, another way to unpack that is my dad doesn't express himself in the way that I consider to be authentic, like the way
Right.
you and I might.
Right.
Like, Jaymee,
Yes.
I've noticed how good you are at listening and how kind you are, or whatever.
Right.
My dad might just be like, you're a good guy.
Yeah.
And why does he have to be like me?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it also it assumes whenever we do the comparison that we were all shot out of the same cannon at the same time with the same ingredients.
That's right.
And
We're not.
Right, but yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. I can't share this enough because it changed my life. But at some point, it came to me. I said, if I were you, I'd be you. Mm-hmm. But you can do that with anybody. And this is why I don't think it'll ever be that popular of an axiom, is because it's too challenging. It's like you could do it. I like to use Trump as an example. People have big problems with Trump, obviously. But I'm like, yeah, if you were him, you'd be him.
Yeah.
And here's why it's
That's
quantifiable. Because he is.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
He's
There's
taking up
this,
the
like-
curriculum of being Donald Trump.
He's doing it.
Yeah.
He exists.
Right.
So he's proof that if you were in that,
Yes.
if you were naked awareness in that psychology, in that DNA,
Yeah.
in that environment with those experiences, everybody wants to think they're the Karate Kid, but if you were the guys in the skeleton suits, you'd be the guys in the skeleton suits.
Yeah.
And there's a real peace in that.
Yeah.
And I think what you're alluding to is like my daughter punches me all the time, and one time, and I love it. I love it. We do this to signal that we're fighting. That means we're fighting.
Yeah, perfect.
It's a little cue.
Yeah,
And I always say when we're done, I go, you can hit Dada, don't hit anybody else.
Yeah.
But that's important to me,
Yeah.
that my daughter is not afraid of me.
Right.
That's like a huge value.
Absolutely, right.
She kicked my dad, and my dad made a face that I had seen my whole life, which was like, you know, he doesn't feel this way about my daughter, but it was like a very serious face.
Yes.
It was like a, don't
Yeah.
you do that, but
Right.
dead serious.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, my dad worked really hard to move us to, as they call it in the fighter, hoity-toity Lexington.
That's crazy.
Where I
did music in that film.
You did not?
Yeah. I did
Shut
2
up.
pieces of music in that film.
Wow,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
hoity-toity Lexington.
Yeah.
That's kind of synchronistic.
Yeah.
Synchronistic.
Yeah.
But I got to walk around. I could have walked around in a gown and I would have had no problems. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might be an exaggeration, but it was the 90s. But anyway, I'm just saying I didn't have to learn that face. And my dad
Right.
grew up in Somerville.
Yeah.
Where he did need that face.
Yeah.
So if I was him, I'd be him.
That's right.
And that
That's
would
right.
be my, you can even depersonalize it more and say that would be the neural groove.
Yeah.
I've been affronted. Like my version of a kid kicking me that I can't let go. I think I'm such a big man, you know, that I can let go when my daughter punches me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. But I can't drop it when my house guest doesn't know my guest. You know what I mean? Like, so, and if you were me,
Right.
you'd be me. You'd
It's
have a hard
incongru-
time with that.
Right.
And like, I have a really hard time with my dog, kind of famously. Like, I'm not crazy about my dog because he's loud and I feel like I'm stalked. There's something about him that he's just following me. He's identified me as the alpha and he stares at me
Yeah.
the whole day and just follows me. And that's not for me. And in fact, I'll go so far to say, if that's for you, go to therapy. Like, what's wrong with you that you need a subservient animal
Yeah. No
just
kid.
staring at you? I
No,
like
it's true.
cats. I like ninjas that are somewhere in the house.
Yeah.
That's for me.
That's cool.
Live your life.
Me too. Absolutely.
But like
Zen mode.
people have a hard time with my dislike of my, or let's be more clear.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with my dislike of my dog because I'm like, I said that to Val once. I was like, we bought a reminder that I'm not as evolved as I thought I was.
Right. Absolutely.
And then I was like,
I agree.
but if I was, because this is the beautiful one, Jaymee, if I was me, I'd be me.
Yeah.
Isn't that
That's
great?
right. That's right. When we got a dog 4 years ago, I had just raised kids, and my partner had lost a dog in her former relationship. And so she had this hole in her heart that was a dog-shaped hole,
Yeah.
and there was nothing that could really fill it. And there was these, she would cry often, and I really wanted to make that happen. Now, I had just raised kids, and they were kind of at a stage where you didn't have to do everything for them.
And now you're going to bring in another problem.
Yes, absolutely. And we did.
Yeah.
And what I noticed energetically in that first year of me, you know, parenting Billy, our dog, is that she had this whole other experience working with Lacey because Lacey talks to her in a soft voice and is just energetically sound with her, like is energetically loving all the time, unconditionally. Yeah. And I was kind of like, had this attitude of sort of exterior compassion, but inside conflict. And Billy could pick up on this because our relationship was different than it was with Lacey's. So over the time, Lacey would always point this out. She's like, she can feel your energy. She can feel your conflict. It's like, oh, Luke, you're conflicted.
Yeah.
You know? So I took up that as the next spiritual practice thing to work with, because I want nature not to be afraid of me. I've already got my kids not afraid of me in life, but I want nature also, especially I'm raising this dog, I guess. Yeah. You know, so I started working on it and softening, and to not great reviews, to an extraordinary blessing of a relationship that we have now, you know. But it was the energy thing more so. I think people think that compassion is good enough if you can, almost like a patronage, you know, sort of like somebody who's getting yelled at as a hostess at a restaurant or something like that. Somebody they can just take it and be professional. And I think that we all somewhat be happy if people were just doing that. But that's false compassion also, because that's just showy compassion. It's like the mask you talk about at the beginning of the thing. And that's not solving anything either. It's just, like Haram Dass talking about, horny celibates.
Yeah.
Like monks becoming horny celibates.
And
like,
angry hippies.
Or the recovery people who, and I'm a former I'm a recovering recovery person. In that, let's see, in recovery, they tell you, what do they tell you? What were we just talking about? I had
dog.
Yes, an energy.
The dog, and it could have your energy.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, take it away, Pete.
Well, you did make me think. I was like, the dog, I believe that these challenging things you need some of that. You need the teaching and the suffering.
Yeah.
And I think we do want to protect ourselves. So really the dog is this gift. I just hate the gift.
Yeah.
I don't hate the dog. I hate the way I feel.
Yes.
But nothing really is accomplished when everything is just sort of padded and nice. But what they don't tell you, so suffering is grace, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
And it shows me where I'm not cooked, and it makes me wonder, why can't I forgive the dog?
Right.
Why can't, for being a dog?
Yeah.
And then you read things like suffering is grace, and like the cracks are where the light comes through and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what they don't tell you is that you're going to hate it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like when I first smoked marijuana and I got paranoid. It wasn't the first time, but the first time I smoked it and got paranoid, what really occurred to me, and it felt very profound, was I was like, oh my God, paranoid people think they're right. Like, that's what they don't tell you.
Yes.
Is you're paranoid, but you think you'd be able to go, I'm paranoid.
Yeah.
But you can't. Mm-hmm. You do think they're following you.
Yes.
And that was a really informative thing, meaning you'd think I'd be going, oh, I'm suffering, but that's good. I'm growing.
Yes.
But really, you're just suffering. You're lost in it.
Yes.
And then you come back later and you go, oh, I can see how you want just a few bugs flying around you during your podcast. You know what I mean? You do.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean you're going to like it.
Right. That's right. And it goes back to the fertilizer situation at the beginning,
That's right.
People compliment me on my life. My father visited a couple months ago, and we got a moment outside, and he and I have been through a whole arc in our relationship.
You telling me.
Yeah. And now he's in the backyard with me, and he's like, you have such a beautiful life. And he starts naming things, and all of it's true. All of it is exactly how I feel about my life. And my father sees it too. Oh. And that was an amazing moment. But then he's just saying this, that, and the other. And I said, what's crazy is that you're just looking at the dirt. All of this that you see that's beautiful, it all came up from the dirt. All I see is fertilizer. Mm. That's all I see now in my life is just, isn't it amazing that the dirt can grow all this beauty? Because my life at many points was that. And I didn't know what a good position I was in having that as being the case.
Yeah.
And I think we all are that fertilizer. I mean, that's potential.
Yeah.
Even that's atheists might say their whole thing is not believing in God, but they have this, they might say, there's human potential or something. They might go, you're not living up to your potential. Well, what is that? It's an invisible, entity that you're talking about that we haven't discovered yet, but we should be in pursuit of. How is that different from spirituality? Right. How is that different from a Christian with God or whoever with God?
Well, that's a big bit on my new special, is trying to get common ground in a cheeky way, in sort of a funny way, about either you think God created the universe, which I think is, obviously going to be an incomplete sentence.
Yes.
To quote Eckhart Tolle, is like, we're just mammals going, bah, boo, bee, bah, bah, bah. And how are you going to make tongue shapes? Oh, that's the secret of the universe.
Did he do that, really?
Yeah.
Bah, boo, bee, boo. Oh,
yeah.
My God, I'd love to see him do that.
He named the 8 sounds we can make. So he's like he did it better than I.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, and as if you could string together some of those and have it be it.
Yeah.
Anyone knows that that's not it.
Right.
So I'm oversimplifying to make a point, but you could say God created the universe.
Yeah.
Or you could say nothing created the universe. And I'm sort of like, what's the difference?
Right.
And I go, But what's funny is the nothing people make fun of the God people and say God doesn't exist. And I'm like, well, sure, maybe. But you know what definitely doesn't exist? Fucking nothing.
Yeah.
That's the defining characteristic of nothing, is that it doesn't exist. Like if you can find it,
You just
it's
mathematically
not
disproved
nothing.
atheism.
Well, I hope I more invited us in to say, like,
Yeah. That's the absurdity. That's where we can laugh.
If it's something called God that you can't see, touch, taste, photograph, and science can't prove, or something called nothing, something you can't see, touch, taste, photograph, and science can't prove, what's the difference? But I think we can agree, and this is where I'm encouraging some humility for everybody.
Sure.
If one of the things your nothing does is spontaneously erupt into everything, that's a pretty goddamn magical fucking nothing.
Yeah.
And then I say, I'm doing the whole bit now, but like it's morning radio. But I go, but ask the nothing people, what happens when you die? I'm skipping a part. I go, can't we just say that nothing is the name of your God?
Yeah.
Nothing can save us, almighty nothing, oh holy nothing. And then I go, what happens when you die? They'll tell you, you go into nothing. And I go, you mean you merge back with your creator?
Right. Right.
And I go, that's heaven, bitch.
This is like Matt Damon and
I'm at the chalkboard doing the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and the joke is, you know, I like to use a red lightsaber, but I'm still fighting for the rebellion. Like I'm still fighting for good.
Nice. Yeah,
but I like to use the same force with which you could, and even the tone of my voice. If you didn't speak English and watch me, you might think, oh, he's probably railing against religion. Right. I like to use that same energy and that same attitude to kind of say something. I don't want to say for religion, but for uncertainty.
Yeah.
I go into a whole thing too where I'm like, my God isn't an old man in the sky.
Sure.
He's a metaphor for a mystery. And that is also inclusive.
Yeah.
Like an old man in the sky is a metaphor for God.
Right.
But God itself is a metaphor for a mystery. This is Joseph Campbell, that absolutely transcends all categories of human thought, including being and non-being.
Right.
But then I say, but that's too many words for the back of a quarter. And then I say, God is the name of the blanket we put over the mystery to give it a shape, which is from Barry Taylor, the road manager for AC/DC. And I'm like, why did I learn that from Barry Taylor, the road manager from AC/DC? So like... And I actually start by saying atheism looks so cool. It does. Yeah. It's the cigarette of beliefs.
Yeah.
What's cooler than being on your deathbed and going like, fuck you, that's my last words. Like that is undeniable. That is so cool.
Yeah.
And I joke that I'm the dork in the station wagon my mom gave me, like honk if you love the Lord. It's not cool.
Right.
But I'm trying to say like, neither side knows. We're all using symbol and metaphor and story to try and understand. And I know science would be like, no, we're trying to look at data and all this stuff. But one of the things that I think is interesting is that, and science would agree, that let's say you're looking in a microscope to analyze, you know, some amoebas, and you get this data from it. And I'm so pro science right now.
Yeah,
we're talking into science right
exactly.
now.
We're
I love
harnessing
it.
Yeah.
I love it. But we do have to look at how it is sort of like the high church of our society.
Yes.
It's the like,
and it's also still an unknown thing, exactly what's going on.
And a
we
good
can't see
scientist
it.
would tell you that.
Right.
And the good ones. But the blind faith, I don't think is very scientific. They would say, don't give us blind faith. Wait for data.
Yeah.
But the thing that I find to be cosmically funny is that we're looking into a microscope and getting data, but the awareness that you're looking into the microscope with is a mystery.
Yeah.
So I think the comparison I make is that it's like we're all pens filled with this holy ink, this ink that like is a complete mystery. No one understands this ink.
Oh,
and so many of us use those pens and we write, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yes.
That's fine.
Right.
But it is funny. Alan Watts makes the point that an atheist is the greatest creation of the universe.
Wow.
That the self, the big self, got so lost in its own play that it completely forgot itself. What? How did you do it?
Yeah.
How did you dream so deeply you forgot you were dreaming? Those are good dreams.
Yes.
Those are interesting dreams.
Yes.
Fucking bravo.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But some, look, and it's not to make a group here and a group there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying some of us are going like, you know, I'm getting the sense that I'm dreaming. And it's not a bad dream. It's not an evil dream. It's not an ugly dream. but I'm interested in connecting to that which is dreaming instead of the character in the dream.
That's right. Well, and if you have a bullshit, I have a great poster in my house that we bought in Joshua Tree that it's a street sign in the middle of the desert, and there's a bunch of there's a sign going almost in every direction on this pole, and they all say bullshit. And if you point in one direction of bullshit, it all has to be bullshit, and that's where we can all be in on the laugh together.
Well, that's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to do. The problem, so much religion. This is my own experience. Became certainty worship, and I was like, that isn't. You think a Semitic tradition was here to give us certainty?
Right.
Have you ever talked to a rabbi? Jesus was a rabbi, dude.
Right?
And rabbis are rabbis. They're not in the business of going like, here's your answer.
Right.
Don't swear. Don't have sex. Don't do drugs. Don't steal.
Yeah.
And you get to go to heaven later.
Yeah.
That's what we turned it into.
Yeah, that's right.
We turned it into a football game.
Yeah. I've been turning the unknown into, I gave it a new title, Mother Unknown.
Mother unknown.
And why? Because everything that we've ever loved, everything that we've ever experienced has all come from the unknown. Nothing was ever certain to begin with. It all came out of that place, and we try to hold on to it after it comes into form and into our life. We try and hold on to something that was just birth and it was temporary. It was just to show us almost that we're held or that we're involved or that we're being messaged, that we're alive, Yeah. So Mother Unknown has just changed the idea of the unknown because everybody's afraid of it.
And I'm not even mad at that process, by the way. Raising a daughter, I notice how much I'm indoctrinating her into useful bullshit. Like I say to her, what was your favorite part of the day? That's there's a huge worldview in that question.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's valuable. The present moment is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not what I think, but I'm saying, like, what do you remember?
Right.
And can you bring it back up? Because I need her to remember things. I need her to remember safe, unsafe.
Right.
Gave me good feeling, gave me bad feeling.
Do you feel that you forget?
Teaching. What's that?
Do you feel that those things, like you're saying, you need her to remember, and I get that. I get wanting to have some validation or verification ongoing.
Spider.
Ooh. Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
You just made me realize that's where magicians were probably like, wow, oh, we could do the floating dollar bill. You know what I mean? Because it just looked like you were manipulating the spider.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
But the verification points that you need with Leela, those let you know that you're parenting and that she's getting the message, but that's not what I meant. I meant I'm trying to teach her how to recall things. I got you.
And that means not be in the moment.
Right, exactly. What a conflict.
But Ramdas and others say you have to be somebody before you can be nobody.
Right.
And others have said, Richard Rohr says you have to build a container before you can break it. Mm-hmm. You have to have an ego before you can surrender it.
That's right.
So I'm not even trying any of this stuff on Leela. I'm pushing her the other way.
I'm like,
gotcha. What makes you mad?
Yeah. Nice. That's great.
I love it.
Yeah. I've been trying to stay so out of the process as much as possible throughout my kids' lives of giving them like a father with an opinion. Yeah. I'm more like a father that provides the many different ways that the world looks at things.
Sure.
And has given them the option to pick up whatever tool is next,
It's beautiful.
And it's allowed them to feel like they have a say in their life beyond just, as I've said sort of on this podcast a bunch, when we were moving to Ojai, I brought them here to say, hey, we want to move here, but, do you guys like it? And spent the day here and just...
That's really cool.
And yeah, that was just something that, God bless our parents. They absolutely did do the best with what they had. And they also advanced things beyond their parents.
Of course.
And in this long chain. And so anyway, I'm not saying this as a railing against anything that's happened before, but I just saw the importance of involving them.
What's interesting is there's two sides to that, just for fun, because I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah.
We had a friend, and we went to Disneyland with them, and their kid had like a real, almost like a panic attack.
Oh.
And it was because, I don't know what it was because, but it was triggered by, what do you want to do? what do you want to do? Do you want to go on Pirates? Do you want to go on this? And I actually, my parents moved us to Lexington, hoity-toity, didn't ask me. And there's a comfort in that as well. Meaning all of these energies are appropriate at different times.
Karmically, maybe. I mean, to get into sort of a woo-ish zone for a second, but like karmically for the individual, these ingredients.
Yeah, you read the kid for sure, and you cater it to them. But when I go to Disneyland, we took Leela's been to Disneyland twice. Once when she couldn't remember, that was sort of silly, and then for her 5th birthday when she totally remembered it. It was awesome. And when we went, again, everybody has to kind of figure out what's right for them. But I fucking love hard dad energy, meaning something I say to Leela all the time is no deal, no deal, no deal,
right?
Or why aren't we doing that? We're not doing that because it's not the time.
Yeah,
we learned that the other night. It's not the time we do that. I've been using that. And also at Disneyland, I don't ask her where we're going. I get a sense of the things she'd like to go, and then I say we're going to Pirates, and I watch a child. I think I can't know anyone's, but I see that she's calm and having a good time. Do that with Val. Val does it with me. Val goes, I planned a trip. Thanks.
Nice.
Thank you. And I do it with Val. I go, we're going here.
Oh, nice.
We're going here.
And okay, that's great.
That sometimes you go, where do you want to go?
Right.
But isn't it great?
Yeah.
I know you like this place. We're going to this place. I like it. I know we like this place. We're going to this place.
Were you guys always
a surprise?
Those people separately? I mean, like as individuals, were you guys always the people that wanted to usher people into good experiences, do you think?
I don't know. I think this is a newer thing, maybe.
Is it?
I've been such a people pleaser my whole life. Being a dad has been really helpful in helping me recognize the quality of, for lack of a better, when I say masculine, I don't mean a penis. I just mean that type of energy.
Sure, yeah.
And how I like it.
Yeah. That
Rabbi Finley, who came on, he's like a alpha, and I like being a beta. Sometimes if I was in a wolf pack, I'd be like, it's him. It's not me. And I go, this is great. You can just kind of trust and follow, and it's a thrill. That's how I was with my therapist. I was very much the beta with my therapist, and that's when you're talking about such gentle souls as Ram Dass or Richard Rohr or whatever. But like I become a student. And I like that. And if Ram Dass, Ram Dass might have been like, I don't know, what do you think? That would have been fine. But I would have known he was doing it for a purpose.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
But
he wasn't just like, I don't know.
Yeah, and the importance of having, belonging to a tradition, like you've mentioned Ram Dass so many times, and you and I have him in common as a inspiration, living inspiration, even though he's not here. Just a absolute inspiration in so many ways. What was I going to say about him? Well, first of all, before I even go into that, there was a moment that happened a minute ago where you acknowledged Lou over there. And before I just said his name, nobody would have known who that was that you were talking to off camera.
Now we need to get an insert. Right.
Well, no, and then, no, I almost like, my point is about this is that as a fan of things, whenever there is these things throughout history where somebody would talk to somebody off mic and you wouldn't get to see, I would just go, what was that? I agree. And I would fascinate on, and that's the unknown. And this is where the draw of the unknown, like I have goosebumps right now, the like what happened there, and just like almost living to find out who they were talking to or what went down, like Beatlemania for me. It's that way of picking up the facts of things and then have it all decimated with Get Back. But still.
So my favorite comedy records are Steve Martin's, and usually at this point, you see my snobbiness. People go, I love Steve Martin, Father of the Bride. And I'm like, I'm talking about the fucking vinyl, right? I like these records. I have them on vinyl, but I also have them on my phone, and I listen to them, and I still enjoy them. And he has lots of bits that, he wrote about this in his book, where he's doing physical bits. The joke is something he's doing, but they're albums.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and then so people didn't want to make them, and then they were released and they were huge hits, and then people were like, can we get more of that physical stuff? Like, do that. So you listen to the record, and he goes, one of them opens with, To start, I always like to do one thing that is impossible, so I am going to suck this piano into my lungs. And then he steps away from the mic and he goes, okay. And there's a pause, and everyone laughs. And he goes, all right, let's get started. And you're listening to it, and you're like, what did he do?
Yes.
And I still don't know. And that is what makes it. It's what they call books. I was a communications major, which is worthless, but here's one thing I learned. Hot mediums and cold mediums. So television is a cold medium in the sense that you don't have to imagine much. And books are a hot medium because they force you to cast it and imagine it. So those records are hot mediums. They engage you in a way that's personal. That's why people get mad when Ready Player One comes out and they make the girl in the movie like a attractive kind of a typical starlet. When in the book she looked like this and this and this. And they were like, that's not a benign violation. Like, that's someone I know. Worse, I made her based on the book, the words, but I made her in my mind and she lived there. And then you got it wrong. That's why people get mad about the Harry Potter movie. You got that wrong.
Yes, of course.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that's because it really had its hold on you.
Yeah. And a minute ago, you did one here where you were not just with Lou, but you were describing sparring with Leela. Yeah. And you said you do this thing, but...
Oh, if you're just listening, you don't know what I did.
You don't... Yeah. And I thought, should I explain it or no? Leave it. Yeah. The mystery is even better. But
that's the whole fun. The first time... I remember one of the first podcasts I guested on in L.A. was called Never Not Funny with Jaymee Pardo. And I listened to it to get ready for it, and I was picturing it in like the Frasier radio station, like big glass window, wooden tables, soundproof carpeting. And you get there, and it's just it couldn't have been less slick. Like his sidekick, which I pictured like Roz and Frasier, in a booth, chiming in, was just sitting next to me with a microphone. Of course, we all know this now. We know what podcast studios look like.
Right.
But when I was first starting, I was like, wow, I'm going on this show?
Yeah.
It was still super fun. Yeah. But in my mind, as just a fan of the show, I was picturing it. I swallowed a bug.
Oh, did you? Was that a swallow?
I swallowed one. I swallowed
You know people are going to be slowing it down.
I wonder if it did go in. That's a good meme. That's a good little gift.
Pete Holmes talks spirituality and swallows
swallowing bug. Yeah. You know, I've been thinking a lot about that too. Yeah. And I don't even have this figured out. But insects, even when I was a vegan, if there was a trail of ants, I would just massacre them. Yeah. And it's just, talk about bullshit. When I say good bullshit, meaning humbling. You know, I always say this, humble is the same as humiliate, it's the same as human. It actually means soil. It comes from the word for soil, so getting low. So let's get low. Yeah. In the good way. Yeah. What's going on there? Or Joe Rogan has a bit about like vegans and they feed their dogs a can of murder or whatever. Right. That's good. That's good. Thank you. That's good.
It's true.
Because, I can't speak for other vegans, but when I was a vegan, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It feels
that
good.
That bit.
And honestly, that's, by the way, I think it's a totally wonderful choice.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying anything against it. Just speaking to my experience, I did, maybe more than most, enjoy being like, especially to vegetarians. I was like, oh, really? You don't like murder?
Right.
You know how they make milk? You know what I mean? Like,
there's blood in your cheese, buddy.
Fucking with them so bad. It's like, think you're making a difference? Yeah. I used to say to vegetarians, we don't recognize you as a people. Like, what kind of a piece of shit am I? And the vegetarians, you know what they would do? They'd go, I know. Because they're doing their best. Yeah. And I'm not a vegan anymore. Yeah.
But me either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, and I read at a certain point.
Maybe you can help me because I still have cognitive dissonance. Oh, well, if I'm really like in the oneness, I can go like, I get it. It's all, nothing's real, so nothing's wrong kind of style. Yeah. But here talking with you, I'm like, to quote Louis C.K., you're not being cool to the animal. Yeah. You're not being groovy. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He says, I mean, my teacher, I have a Tibetan Vajrayana teacher, and his name's Lama Lanang, and he says that when you throw a rock in the air, that he said that he sees a trail of red. He said, just throwing a rock in the air, you're disturbing habitats of germs, living
Well, every
beings.
breath you take, too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So
But that goes to my aunt. You know exactly where I'm going.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's harm is everywhere. He said
But-
you can't be without harm.
Yeah.
That someone who feels smug in their veganism about like not eating any animals perceivably has killed thousands of bugs in their salad,
Yeah.
whereas a meat eater is eating one
Right.
cat. No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
a delicious cat. When I stopped being a vegan, the first thing I did was fry up a tabby. It was so good. But I mean, it's rife with contradictions and paradox, and that's what makes it so annoying to talk about from any perspective.
Yeah.
Being a former vegan, being a vegan is annoying
Right.
from every perspective.
Yeah.
But I actually think that
The spider.
he's back.
He's back. He loves
Just
to be here.
squish him.
It's a
Just
relative.
squish him.
I mean, we're literally talking about insects.
I know, that's so
Yeah.
fun. And our respect for them.
Yes.
Or our disrespect for them.
Yes.
That's an arachnid, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's a jumper,
I do
too.
it
He's
right.
like looking at me. I'm looking at his eyes.
Oh,
you have
wow.
many eyes. Are you going to jump on my face?
I hope not.
It's literally following me.
I'd want to live in that beard. Come on.
No kidding. It does looks like a web on its own.
I was going to say, though, that I think the thought system that's behind meat pervades everything, which is kill or be killed.
Yeah.
Me or you. I know I make this example all the time, but I'm sitting in this chair. Lou is not sitting in this chair.
Yeah.
That's just what duality is.
Right.
I'm not excusing any behavior, by the way.
Right, right.
I think we can make this dream as groovy as we want to make it.
Yeah,
it's
me
a
too.
noble pursuit, and we should do that.
Yes.
And if you're unkind to me, believe me, all of this goes out the window because I'll be like, you should be kind. You should be kind. That's not. You should know who my guest is. You know what I'm saying? So I can't. Pete can't live this all the time, but I can get into a space where I understand that the real problem, if you want, and I don't even think it's a problem, but the real game or the real illusion is duality, is separation, and that's what we're here to overcome. And it's possible to eat meat and recognize unity.
Yes.
And it's possible to not eat meat and still be stuck in the thought system that eating meat is a product
Absolutely.
of, if that makes sense.
Well, and he even said...
By your huge absolutely, I'm guessing that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. My teacher said this last week in class, he said, he's like, everybody wants to talk about human rights. Everybody's just mad in the streets talking about human rights. He's like, but animals, insects, every living being wants rights.
Yeah.
And basically, if we're putting gas in our car or we're driving anywhere...
Or you have a house, you took the habitat for an owl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or we move. We literally move and we harm things. Like this spider is just staring at me.
Yeah.
And it's so fragile, this dance that I'm doing right now with this spider here, because, it's a fragile moment. I could just squish it, but it's so much more interesting actually to hang out and just see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's cameras going and everything. When it's a live podcast and I'm being stared down by an 8-eyed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too many eyes. by
There's
the
way
way.
too many eyes.
That's no way that.
It's sweet though. It's looking at me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I read years ago, I was vegetarian thinking that I was doing the right thing as a Tibetan Buddhist. And pretty much, anywhere you read, at least anywhere I read in the first 15 years of practicing in that tradition, was like no harm. Just no harm, compassion, and I was in this practice of releasing insects, releasing like crickets. I would go buy 100 crickets, and it's called the ransom and release of animals.
Yeah. And
where you buy animals that are on their way to slaughter, and you release them. And you dedicate the merit of that action to all living beings. And I've done that so much with my kids growing up, and it's been this regular practice. And so I just thought that I was like doing great things and being vegan and and vegetarian.
I mean, it can be beautiful.
Yeah, no, it totally was. And then at a certain point, I read this teacher. I read his book.
Jeez Louise, he's about you. He jumped onto you?
And then back, huh?
And he went back.
Oh, my God.
This guy's got to go, man.
I know. No kidding. Okay. All right.
Now take him. Yeah, there you go.
Get rid of him? Look.
I mean, that was a huge event.
He's going to be
in
back.
his life.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think when I'm peeing outside, are the insects that are down there, are they going like, and then the God came and it showered down this hot yellow, and this is when they set a calendar now for when this this moment happened. It's like their Bible moment. You know, it's like a microcosm of maybe what human beings were doing with the Bible, thinking that it's an event, but it was really just God taking a leak or something.
Maybe.
So anyway, I was reading that book, and he said something about he said that vegetarians, much like what you were describing, the smugness of it, he said that when the crops are plowed, that there are bunnies and there are these small animals
get sucked into the plant.
Absolutely. And then the drive just from the farm to the store, all these insects are killed along the way. And so to get you your vegan meal, there's just harm everywhere. So it's not like don't do anything also. It's not like, hey, you can't eat anything, you can't go anywhere. It's just like know what's going on and compassionately act.
It's humility again.
Absolutely.
It's not saying those aren't noble pursuits, but I do bristle a little bit. Like sometimes Eckhart Tolle eats meat, for example, and people are like, an enlightened being. Supposedly eating meat. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. That's why I find it more valuable to go deeper, like through.
The Dalai Lama eats meat on Thursdays because of his blood type.
Well, he's O positive?
Yeah, and I didn't know that until 10 years in. And then when I heard it, it was like, it was just a window in. It was like, wait, if they figured out something, they're trying to sustain his life so he can benefit maximum beings. And so they figured out this thing, and there's a compromise, I guess, within him and the Dharma or something to where he can do this with prayer rituals. And I just thought at a certain point, because my health, being vegan and vegetarian, matching my aging, was not... it felt like it was a hindrance, and I wasn't getting, like, my joints hurt, the areas hurt that I wasn't getting a certain thing from my blood type. And
here's how any of that could be. Sorry, I didn't mean.
No, it's okay.
But and I don't want this to be like a soundbite, but like veganism or any noble pursuit, and I'm saying it is a noble pursuit, can be unhelpful if you start to believe your own hype. And this goes back to our boy Ramdas, who was eating a little bit of meat, I think, at least at the end of his life. But when he was a vegetarian, he has that great story of he's wearing his holy robes and stuff, and he's in America, and he goes into a Chinese restaurant. And he identified that he was taking himself too seriously, like I had been, and he ate some spare ribs. And he tells the story, he's like, they were as delicious as I had remembered. And then this businessman, I think he was a heavier guy, came up to him and was like, and Ramdas was feeling the appropriate amount of like, I'm glad I'm in a dark Chinese restaurant and no one knows me. This guy comes up and says like, I'm sorry, but I've just been watching you eat, and you really just seem so peaceful, and I struggle with my weight and my health. And he goes, what do you eat? And there's a plate of pig bones on the table. And that is exactly what I love about Ramdas. It's not changing the world, it's changing your mind about the world. And that doesn't mean one of the things, the Leela or the Dharma or the dance, can be making the world better. But there's a certain brokenness, a good brokenness, in going like, I was going to say this, Lou, because I know you know, as parents, we know this. So consider that you don't want your kids to watch too much television, too much screen time. And even kid shows that you watch are like fever dreams, like Coco Melon, and it's like nothing is wrong. It's all in major keys, and it's all, you know, the primary colors, and it's insane making to grown-ups. And kids like it. And we like it because we're like, okay, just go pretend that the world is this. And they go, okay. And that's fine. Okay, so you also want to protect them from too much screen time. My joke is, I used to lie to my doctor, how many drinks do you have in a week? Now I lie to my friends, how much screen time do kids get? That's the new lie.
Yeah, totally.
So, but the ego is at play here, meaning let's say I do deprive Leela of screen time. And then I feel good about it. And then I mention it to you in kind of like a self-important way, like, well, we don't.
Yeah.
Like you're giving your kid an iPad. I'm like, well, we don't.
Right.
Well, the ego snuck in the back door. You were trying to be virtuous.
Right.
But the way to virtue is actually through.
Yeah.
It's not around.
Yeah.
It's through. It's Jesus on the cross.
Yes.
It's fucking blood.
Yeah.
And it's humiliations, and it's getting swallowed by a whale.
Yes.
And it's Job.
And it's what's
this.
necessary. It's
It's
actually
the
like...
only thing that's happening.
Right. Exactly.
But if I
Yes.
weaponize my virtue
Yes.
to... And this is A Course in Miracles, which is my jam. I love it so much.
Absolutely.
Is murder. Is I'm murdering you. It's this. I know that's extreme language, but that's the language
Yes.
the Course would use.
That's right.
It would say, I'm over here being good.
Yeah.
You're bad. And underneath that, if you unpack that, you go, God will save me and smite you.
Right. Exactly. Yes, that's right.
And my guilt over separating from God
Yeah.
is now which is unbearable, is projected onto you as bad parent, and I'm good parent, I'm innocent, you're guilty, I'm
Right.
okay, you're bad, you're fucked. It's all scapegoating. It's psychological, but it's also spiritual.
Yeah.
So veganism, screen time, whatever it is,
Yeah.
if you're using it to put a wedge between you and yourself,
Yeah.
there's a line I just wrote on my mirror. It was like, you can only condemn yourself, and if you see guilt in your brother, you'll never recognize yourself as the son of God.
Oh,
Because if I
that's so
can't see
good.
you as the son of God, I'm not the son of God.
That's right.
As soon as I go, you give your kid too much screen time, I just got kicked out of the kingdom.
Yeah.
I don't mean in heaven. I just mean in this moment, I'm now very much Pete, and you're very much Jaymee.
Yes.
And
I'm over here, you're over there, somebody's out. Somebody's out.
And that is, in my worldview,
Yeah.
very similar to killing a cow and eating it.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I just killed you. And I know, I
Yes.
understand. Please don't come at me with that. I understand it's different. If I watch someone kill a cow, it would be a trauma for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But it's also can be a micro disturbance
Mm-hmm.
if someone makes me feel shame, embarrassment, guilt. And in that moment, neither of us are as unto little children. Neither of us are in the kingdom.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about how Jesus said, if you're not like a child, you won't enter the kingdom. And He
Yeah.
just means the kingdom of here and now.
That's right.
And yet how many, and I mean myself, of course myself included, go to church acting like children. And I
Right.
don't mean childish. I mean childlike.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine asking a child, like, can someone get divorced?
Yeah. Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm in the bosom of the beloved.
Right.
And all she wants me to do is play and know that I'm safe.
Yes.
And held and
Right.
loved no matter what.
And hold a heart of no divorce throughout life.
Exactly.
Just
exactly.
impossibility.
Well, that's
of
what Jesus
divorce.
said. He was like,
Right.
if you're, Jesus says when somebody asks them about adultery, if you look at a woman with lust in your heart, you've committed adultery.
Right.
And we always used to take that as like, so everyone's really fucked.
Yeah.
I see it as more as like,
Hey, check yourself.
what's going on in your mind.
Yes.
Because how you're interacting and how soft you are
Yeah.
and how spacious you are. Because when I forgive you, I forgive myself. In fact, I can't forgive myself if there's another great line in the Course where it says a jailer is not free, he is bound to his prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
So if you leave your mom in jail, guess what, dipshit? You're the dumb fuck that has to watch her and
Yeah.
keep her in jail.
Yeah.
And guess where a jailer is? In jail. You're on the other side of the bars, but from their perspective, you're just in a cell. It's
Right.
just a cell.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to let everybody out of the jail.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that, there are some of the strategies we said for forgiveness. If I was them, I'd be them.
Yeah.
But I get a lot more juice out of going, like, difficult people in my life are a projection of my own guilt, my own inability to accept myself as God's son.
Yes.
And then I can't forgive them. I go, that's my job.
Right.
My job is to forgive them, and not so I can tell them I forgave them. No one has to know. It's so I can experience forgiveness. Because as long as you're guilty, we're all guilty.
Yeah.
And if you're innocent, guess what? We're all innocent. And I don't want to die like this. I don't want to die like that.
And the problem is that here we are, and we're creating a podcast, and we're creating a resource center, basically a digital resource center for people to be able to check back in with. The thing is that much like hearing great information in the world, which we do often now with the arrival of podcasts and all, however you get your information, you can get it in an instant. And so the thing is that we hear these things and we go, yes, and we even feel it deeply. And then we instantly forget. We go back to life the way that we've been doing it, hoping that that thing that we heard just for a moment will find us throughout the day. Yes. Yeah. And it's a practice of keeping these things alive. It's literally like holding a needle in your hand with thread when you get a good idea and stitching it into every area of your life.
Yeah.
That's
and
the only
practice.
Success. Yeah. And the reason compassion is taking so long, I feel like, and we're just at the stage where we've all recognized that we've been victimized. Like, oh, there's a place for my hurt. Oh, there's a box that it fits in. Oh, there's a voice then that I can have. That's so great. And so everybody's yelling at the same time about what happened to them and no one's listening. You know, and the thing is that that's a staying in the victimization section of this, which is, I mean, it's taken a long time to even get there. So you can't fault people, but hanging out there is not the intended goal, much like hanging out almost in Buddhism is not the intended goal of Buddhism. It's, you know, to transcend it at some point. It's a vehicle for your awakening. Yeah. You know, and so we don't have resource centers that are actually like places where you can go and hear these ideas over time. You have to become it yourself. You know, your house has to become an ashram, and your actions have to become prayers in some way, but not heavy-handedly in the way that you've heard. You know, just a regard and a like, I'm going to consciously work with these ideas that I've heard out of Pete today and stitch it into the everyday with my parenting. You know,
but I think your inability to remember it is a clue as well, because I don't think I think it's a dropping, right? So. Just like everybody, there are moments when I can't remember everything that I'm saying, and they are getting more pushed in. But Richard Rohr says salvation or conversion or enlightenment or whatever you want to say can't be an intellectual exercise. Or as Ram Dass used to say, I know all this, why aren't I enlightened? And I was like, I relate to that. Yeah. Well, I think that's a clue in itself, is that it's not a perfect filing cabinet with just the right ideas. In fact, my my favorite teachers would say that the idea that you have to get something is just another stupid game. Yeah. And Pete, let's say it is me. Pete knows these things. I should know those things. Great. That's what I've been doing. I've been getting good ideas from other people. So that's fine. But I do think that's a trap.
We weaponize also, like now we're weaponizing our hurt in the way of like, if somebody hurts our feelings, we're not experiencing hurt feelings anymore. We immediately think about a way to turn it into a currency of how to get them back into our fold and have them now apologize to us. And
That's right.
We start to churn it into like a...
They killed me, now can I kill them?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's almost like we're turning it into a product that we can sell back to them.
It is a currency. Yeah. You have a balance.
Right.
How are you going to address it? I catch myself do that all the time. I'll do the dishes, or I let Val take a nap yesterday. It's very tempting to be like, so now I can do whatever I want. Yeah. I can play video games or something. Yeah. That's very silly.
Or you get into a difficulty and then it's like, oh yeah, well that nap must have been nice.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, you've napped and I haven't napped today.
But again, to our point, it's like with A Course in Miracles would say, don't with force try to stop that behavior. It's not what I did. Val got a nap and I didn't. You just see it and you forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. And you go, that's not real. Right. Nothing's real, so nothing's wrong. Right. I got to look up who said that because that's a song lyric. But it's the Buddhists would say no self, no problem. Yeah. But also like everyone's right and no one's right. Well, nothing's happening.
Yeah. Where is it being recorded in time?
Well, show me this. That's my newest thing. Show me this moment.
Yes, exactly. Show it to me.
Show it to me.
Right.
Show me this environment.
Yeah.
And there's something really interesting there, is that if you wanted to quantify and prove and recordize this moment, this environment, you'd have to go around and I can start with the chair and I feel it. But then I'd have to go over to your chair. And when I'm at your chair, I'm not at my chair. So all I have now is the memory of this chair. Yeah. I can't touch all of this all at once.
Yeah.
So I don't exactly know how to make that a verbal idea, but there's something about like, show me what you're so certain about.
Mm-hmm.
And even where, so Rupert Spira is a huge teacher for me, and he's a non-dualist, and he teaches that experiential, he teaches curiosity about what the I is.
What differentiates non-dualism from Buddhism?
Well, I think some Buddhism is non-dual, or maybe all of it.
I think all of it.
I think all of it.
Yeah.
Then to answer your question.
Yeah.
To answer your question, just the language.
Right.
Rupert, the reason I push so many people towards Rupert is because he doesn't really use religious language.
Oh,
at
that's a virtue.
You might have like a aversion to Buddha.
Like Stoicism, I guess. Is this Stoicism or not? No.
He wouldn't even use that.
Yeah,
Maybe you have an
that's too
aversion
clunky.
to Stoicism. Well, I've been doing this a lot lately, is like where, if you close your eyes and you feel your hands, right? You just sense into your hands. But if you were a newborn baby, this is all Rupert, where would you say that experience is happening?
Right.
And you would say, here. And you know that. This isn't woo-woo. You'd go, where is the sense data showing up? And you would say, in this placeless place, meaning it's not a place, we can't touch it, but it is kind of a place. It shows up in my awareness. And if I didn't have any space, if I had never opened my eyes, I would just say, it occurs here. This feeling of me grinding my hands is happening here. And then you could say, where does the feeling of the bottom of my feet happen? You and I know that my hands are closer to my head than my feet, but it happens just as close. The sensation happens just as close.
Wow. All is mind then.
It's all mind.
Yes.
But that's no longer just an idea.
Yes.
Now we can experience it.
Right.
You can do the experiment. You can do it with sound as well. A bird just went,
yeah.
I go, that bird is over there.
Yeah.
Where did you experience the sound?
Yeah.
Here.
Now. Yes.
The same is true of my visual field.
Yeah.
I add the story that tree is over there, but it isn't just written on me. It's written in me.
Yes.
It is me.
That's right.
And the real interesting thing about spirituality versus a materialistic worldview is the materialistic worldview would say consciousness is the vehicle with which we experience a reality that is there.
Right. Right.
Spirituality would say, and also so with things like solipsism, there are other worldviews. The only unfalsifiable thing is that I, consciousness, experience the feeling of this chair.
Right.
So spirituality says that's the only game in town. That's the only thing that's happening.
Yeah.
And when you pull out a little bit further, you say awareness isn't personal. It's not just yours. It's the only thing that's going on. And it appears over there and it appears in here. Seems to be separate.
Yeah.
But really it's just, and you can get that through molecules too.
Yeah, but it's not even there unless we're looking at it, right? I mean, science would say,
too. Yeah,
right?
the Heisenberg principle.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's also just to consider that it's all atoms.
Yeah. Right.
And then it's all organized in this way. Well, it's all consciousness. And it's all organized in this way. But, okay, so those are fun thought experiments. Or they can be fun. Some people freak out. But why? It's more than a thought experiment. It's an invitation. As Muji would say, it's an invitation to freedom. If you get curious about the attributes of what you mean when you say I, meaning yourself, meaning the thing or whatever that is aware of your experience. So if you start going, it's the most, as Rupert would say, it's the most obvious thing in the world to recognize that you are that which experiences all the things.
Right.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm not going to put down my coffee and my phone for that. Here's what you put down your coffee and your phone for. When you explore and get curious about the qualities of that which we call I, of awareness that you are, you recognize that, what is it? These are all pointers, but it's spacious,
right.
It's peaceful. I would say if you get really friendly with it, get close to it, it's joyful.
Yes.
It's laughing.
Right.
Laughing is pretty subject-object, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's free.
That's what one of the things Mulaney said on Colbert was that he found out that he's happy, that he's actually happy, and that he creates situations that don't sustain his happiness
right.
himself.
Well, that's
like
it.
Working against it.
And I think most of us would rather exist and be miserable than be happy and vanish. Because when you're in that place and you're identified with your capital S self, you do sort of vanish. You lose your belly a little bit.
Yeah.
If you've ever been on psychedelics. Sorry, I thought this was off.
No problem.
If you've ever been on psychedelics, I have.
Yes.
And you're clinging the earth and you go, I am a citizen of this planet. You know what I mean? I belong here.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little bit like that. You have to go, I'm not a citizen of this planet.
Yeah.
I'm not. When Rupert would say, when you look in the mirror, you're not seeing yourself.
Yeah.
You're seeing
a happening.
You're seeing a body.
He might not say that, but I just
No, that's the right language.
Yeah.
You're seeing a phenomenon.
Right. I got out of the shower the other day and I heard, every once in a while I hear things, and I heard that, and it's been said a million different ways, and so, but it was presented to me and organized in a way that was compelling, especially since I was naked and, getting out of the shower and like, this doesn't happen. I even remember I was stepping out of the shower when this happened, so I was really there for it, and it said that, that we are individualized energies of the universe that come together not to be a person, but to actually get to experience all the things that we do. I mean, just to get to experience it, not to put it anywhere or store it or figure out anything, just that we have consciousness in individualized energies of the universe that have come together in form, and that we get to observe and have the experience. I mean, I was molested when I was younger. Like, I got to have that experience. It turned me into this person. That's abuse.
That's very... I almost cried. I mean, not out of pity, out of beauty.
Yes.
Out of beauty. That is just gorgeous.
I'm literally living with the name of the person. Like my name, I share a name with the person who hurt me. And I chose to keep the name for us both.
Well, that's very profound. That's like Thich Nhat Hanh's poem. It's like, I'm the dragonfly, but I'm also the frog that eats the dragonfly. And it gets pretty graphic. It's a great poem.
Yeah.
He goes, I'm the young girl getting raped on
a
pirate ship,
on the
and
pirate
I'm also a pirate.
Right. It's a beautiful
My heart
poem.
not yet ready to love.
It won a Nobel Peace Prize.
It should.
Yeah.
I'll give it one.
He was nominated by Martin Luther King because of that poem, actually.
Well, that's what Martin Luther King knew, I think.
Yeah.
Was we're the oppressed, and he understood the part of him that was the oppressor.
Right.
Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Did you have a gravitation towards Martin Luther King when you were younger, or Gandhi,
course.
or people? Yeah, me too. In my youth, like incongruently almost.
And yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a whole subject that brought up thoughts and feelings. But yes.
Yeah. I want to ask you, actually, I wanted to start with this, and I'm glad we didn't. But
what's your problem? Dude, what's your problem?
I thought that it'd be an interesting thing. There's enough that we've learned now about celebrity. There's enough that we've learned enough to, everybody's pursuing it. And not everybody is pursuing it, actually, but many people.
Millions of people
yes.
are, yeah.
And TikTok has now made, people who never
millions
even
of people
had
are doing it. Yeah.
Right, they're doing it.
They are doing it.
They're doing it. They are becoming, yeah. So
Andy Warhol was right.
Right. So within that, though, I thought it'd be an interesting PSA to give on, like, sell us on why not to become a celebrity.
That's really funny. Well, like alcohol, I stopped drinking. Nothing outside of you should have the authority to make you feel perfect. Also, it won't work. Like alcohol, celebrity won't work. I used to wonder, like, why does, I don't want to name anybody, but like, why does someone who we know has all the money in the world and is already deeply, deeply famous, why are they doing this commercial, or why are they doing that corny show?
Right.
Or like, why are they hosting a game show and they're 1 week off? Like, I don't understand what's going on. It's a hungry ghost sort of thing. And I don't say that to other them. I'm saying I recognize that.
Yeah.
It's insatiable.
Right.
I was just thinking yesterday, I was like, one of my goals is to pay off my house. I'd really like to pay off my house. And then another voice in my head was like, you think it'll stop then?
Right.
You think you're not going to buy...
You thought it would stop owning a house.
Exactly.
Right.
And by the way, I did pay off a house.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Ojai. Now I got another house. And now I have to pay this house off. You know what I mean? Like, What are you talking about? That's not Sadhguru talks about that. He's like, if you own the entire world,
Yeah.
how long before you'd be like, I want Mars?
Yeah.
We do want Mars.
He already does.
Yeah, we want Mars.
Yeah.
And if you had Mars, would it stop?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get into, Ram Dass talks about the great ice cream cone in the sky, the ice cream that won't melt,
Yeah.
that we just get to eat and eat and eat and eat.
Right.
And eat. But we know in reality, ice cream makes you want water,
Yeah.
makes you want a nap,
Right.
maybe gives you a stomach ache. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not what's happening here.
Yeah.
But also what isn't happening here is satisfaction.
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
So-
well, tell us about that.
Well, I can talk about it from multiple levels because to start, one of the things I really like about being the level of famous that I am is that it makes the whole world into an Ojai. What do I like about Ojai is I see you at coffee,
Yeah.
but I can fly to Minneapolis
Right.
and someone will come up to me and say something nice.
Oh, man, that guy who you just met the other day from Minneapolis that I introduced
Right,
you to is
exactly.
going to love that.
There, I picked, Minneapolis.
Justin,
Justin, you sweet man. But, I heard Letterman say that. He said it turns the whole world into a small town. And I was like, that's good conversion. Converting what is happening into like a nice and kind of an everyday experience.
Yeah.
Meaning, you understand that.
That sounds like a post-heart attack Letterman,
Yeah,
though.
it sure does. But that is nice.
Yeah.
And I don't want to fly so high as to think that having your work validated isn't meaningful psychologically. And it is. I think you could be an aesthetic and live under a tarp and hang out with God all day. I believe that as a real potential.
Yes.
I'm not there. I like doing shows. I like when they go well. I like writing scripts. I was writing this morning. I love the action of that. I love the flow state of that. I love my own sense of humor. I feel very fortunate, like an archaeologist, that I've uncovered what I like.
Wow.
And I think that's valuable.
Me too.
And I can
God,
unearth
I'm so happy
it.
for you.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I write a script and I go, say what you want, and people are going
Right.
to edit it and they'll change it, but I'm like, this is the one I like.
Yeah.
And the more things that I do, like the Batman videos, that's me. That's me getting to be off leash and working with Oren and Matt and making these things that I'm like, that's what it looks like when I'm funny. And I love it. So that's all valuable. I don't want to be too spiritual and like, or
Right.
phony.
Like when I told you
And act
that
like
you
I
were
don't like
quoted
that.
on Tetragrammaton.
Yeah, exactly. By Judd.
By
That's who
Judd to
texted me,
Rick.
by the way. How cool
really?
is that?
Oh,
yeah,
that's
Isn't
so
that fun?
crazy. Yeah. And he, I mean, really all of that kind of, that conversation in some weird way inspired this all coming together.
Right.
I heard that and
What
I
if
thought,
he said I quoted you on Rick Rubin? I'm just going to check.
Yes,
what if
please.
he did? No, he sent me a Mitch Hedberg interview.
oh, wow. That's great. God, I miss Mitch. So no, but when I told you that, I mean, here's Judd Apatow and Rick Rubin in conversation, and these are giants in many respects. And then you get brought up by Judd as a wisdom point of something that you were doing. Have you listened back to? You didn't search it? I'm proud of you.
No,
I told you about it, and you didn't search it.
And I never will.
No,
Because I've been at the buffet long enough.
gotcha.
You're
That's
walking
what it
into
is.
the buffet and you're like, there's a buffet. And I'm like, I'm stuffed, man. I'm stuffed. So it's not cool. Val will say that to me. We'll be sitting and watching TV, and you know what it's like having a kid.
Yeah.
Most of the day, we're not giving updates about our life, and I'll be like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I sold that movie," or something. And she's like,
Yeah.
like things that used to be and should maybe even be big champagne moments sometimes get normalized, and that is cool. I never get to be cool, so that is cool.
Yeah,
It's cool that I didn't look that up, right?
Yeah,
I
it is.
I never get to be cool, so I'm gonna enjoy being cool. But to talk about, I had something else to say about fame. Oh, here's what it is. What I would say to people that want to be famous, I would say that Mulaney and Bill Burr. I'm just trying to think of big comics that I knew coming up. Not coming up, but you know what I mean, before they were huge.
There's already a theme with both of those two people that I can spot.
Oh, I just picked two greats.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both have they both have done massive introspection on their lives.
Yeah.
And are living a life different than
That's
they
true.
were known for in their career.
No, I think
In some way.
Yeah, absolutely. But neither of them got into stand up to be famous.
Huh.
So here's what I'm saying,
That's
and I've
cool.
said this a million times, so forgive me if it sounds canned, but I'm going to try to be very present as I say it to you. Follow the dream that's also following you, right? So you get this feedback. This matches my skill set. This matches my temperament. Not always perfectly. I don't like being funny at night. I'd much rather, if stand-up was an 11 a.m. thing,
Yeah.
I would have been fine with that. But I had to do what it is. It's a midnight thing. It's like a drunken crowd thing. That was never my favorite.
Right.
But you gotta roll with it. But like, you got feedback. I was doing best in the top percentile at the open mic.
Right.
I was doing the best. Meaning, okay, that's a little breadcrumb. I think I'm going to stay on this path. Maybe even more importantly is it corresponds to my wound, meaning it's a compulsion. Meaning in my childhood, I sometimes didn't feel like there was room for my feelings. I didn't necessarily feel like I could be my authentic self. And I deeply, as a result, want to be heard. So I got into something where you speak and then people give you an auditory response that they not only heard you, but were changed by what you said.
Right.
How perfect for my wound.
Yeah.
That's called the spider bite. Now I'm Spider-Man. You know what I mean? I know, perfect. I would have said that anyway. But that's why the superheroes are always wounded, and then the wound gets alchemized into their gift.
Right.
So when people are like, I want to be a stand-up, I'm like, I don't want to be too condescending, but it's like, oh, really? You want to do the thing that is currently culturally valuable, and like praised,
right?
Do the thing that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And
were you wanting to be a singer-songwriter maybe 5 years ago?
Exactly. Right.
And pursue that thing, like just go wherever it is.
Find the thing that you're supposed to do and then do it, because I think if you're not on some level addicted to it and compulsed to do it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. That's, I guess, what this is for me. This conversation, I identified as a musician most of my life. And like a vegan, you would know in 5 minutes of meeting me that I was a music person. And you might, be in my car already listening to a song that I recorded that day, just so you knew who the fuck I was.
That's right.
Kind of thing. And so that's how tightly I wore it. And it was aggressive.
Yeah.
That's an aggressive thing against myself by trying to prove that I'm somebody.
Yeah.
And so it's a form of aggression, and I would do that for ages. And now what I found after quitting and being quit for 10 years, of identifying at least as a musician. I'll pick up a guitar and write a song, but I don't think about where it should go next. And that was my thing, is how to incentivize every single creation with where this can fit and where it might make $1 or where it might so and so. The things that you're trained actually to do and accomplish. But after 10 years of quitting, basically at the quitting point, I realized after having conversations with people, after not playing music for a few years and for a few months and not even listening to it, I started having conversations with people and finding that it was the exact same thing that I'd been not only looking for in music, but had been finding in music. It was always about the bond, and it was about the connection, and it was about jamming together with somebody.
Right.
And that's just what we've been doing
That's
here
right.
for the last, hour and a half.
That's right. I'm a little out of tune, but yeah.
Not even close.
No, I know
You're
exactly
soloing.
what you mean. People don't need to, but you can. Like, I've been saying this about my new special. It's like, you might come in because you're like, I wonder what he says. What are the new jokes? But I really think what's happening is, it's like, I'd just like to hang out in that space. And this sounds very, however it sounds. But I think a special is more of a room, a space that you hang out in for an hour, than it is like, what's my take on this, or this. And that's one of the dangers of chopping it up. And I do that. We chop it up.
Yeah.
But hopefully to get you to go in the room at some point.
Yeah, right. That's beautiful. What's the special called?
It's called I Am Not For Everybody.
That's great.
Yeah. Because honestly, I'm kind of complimenting myself, I'm realizing, because you don't want to be for everybody.
Right.
Like, if your comedy is for everybody, it's certainly not for me.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So
what would be the
that's a
equivalent
paradox.
of a comedy that's for everybody, like an example in the world? I don't even mean necessarily a comedian, but so we don't have to roast somebody.
Well,
too
I don't
hard.
know if there is comedy for everybody. There's certainly broader stuff. And I'm not even against like a fart joke or, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like things that are like, anybody would laugh at that. I guess, you know what's comedy for everybody? I think is videos of people falling down, videos of cats,
right,
where they're not hurt. That's important.
Which is also compassion practice. It's weird, but every time you watch and you see somebody get hurt, you cringe because you're feeling.
You.
Yes, that's right.
You felt it.
Yep.
That's absolutely true. I had a humbling moment where I was about to do stand-up in Chicago, so this is my first 3 years, and we're doing this sort of a bad open mic in the back. And in the front of the room, in a bar, there was a TV playing the equivalent of America's Funniest Home Videos. This is 2001 or 2, so it might have been America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah.
And the sound was off, and people were dying laughing watching it. And I'm like, oh my God, America's Funniest Home Videos with the sound off is funnier than stand-up comedy.
What?
And I was like...
Holy shit!
I was like... That's a good realization.
Wow.
You know? It's a different thing.
Yes,
it's just a different thing.
Right.
But you do, with stand-up and with podcasts, you want it to be a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
But you do.
Well, and by the end product, I mean, in this special that's about to come out, I think what a lot of people don't understand that I've just understood getting deep diving more into comedy outside of, you know, the energies that I used to expend on diving into music. I kind of in the last few years have been, you know, following you guys, you know, around and hanging out with you guys as the philosophers of life, you know, and people who are also willing to laugh at everything, including themselves. And that's very Buddhist. It's sort of like you're on fire to make a point almost.
No self,
you know?
no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so in doing that and in studying, God, I forget what my
In
point
fact,
was.
you could say being offended is like one of the most grotesque examples of separation and taking your identity very seriously.
Absolutely.
Look, I get offended too. In fact, that's part of the special is I'm like, if you're offended by that joke, I agree.
Yeah.
That joke is offensive. And I don't walk around. You can offend me. You could say something about probably my wife or my daughter and you know, everybody has that response. So I'm not saying never be offended.
Yeah.
But Richard Rohr, who's not talking about stand-up comedy, but he does say, like, I don't exactly remember how he says it, but it's something like your quickness to be offended is like a metric by which you can kind of see how you're doing.
Oh,
inside.
yes, absolutely.
How in your heart you are.
Yeah, how forgiven you've been on your past.
And I've done my Richard Rohr impression for Richard Rohr. And you think this guy would be, you know, there's a line.
Yeah.
Just making fun of him right to his face. And
Perfect.
he laughed so hard, he put his hand up to slap me. if I had been closer, he would have slapped me. It was one of the highlights of my life.
I bet.
And I was like, that's it. And
Dude, you made God laugh.
What's that?
You made God laugh.
Richard Rohr?
Yeah.
Well, anybody laughing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. But still, it's kind of funny because...
But I kind of think that's what we're saying. Can you offend God? Growing up, I would say, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that's the ego's God.
That's right.
I think
right.
that's
the one that you're making up.
We made God like us instead of being like God.
Anyone that needs your help to describe God.
Yeah.
Any God that needs your help to defend it
and
or
hold
describe
up a mirror to it so it can know what it is.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's just like your God. You need a bigger God.
But the problem with this God, and it is my God, is that when you, and I had a ketamine experience where I really feel like I hung out with this God.
Wow.
And I know. You want to know what it said?
Yeah, I do.
It said, there's so much less to do than you think. And I just started crying.
So true.
I was like, because in that space, I love my mom, and I love both my parents, but specifically my mom when it comes to spiritual things. I'm like, I got to get my mom to do this. And it was like, you are your mom doing
this. Wow.
Yeah.
God.
Like, stop ruining it by thinking there's something called mom.
Right.
You're doing this for all of us.
Oh.
And that sounds like an ego trip, but I mean, like, I'm doing this
It is an
for
ego
all
trip.
of me.
It's literally an ego trip, though. I mean, actually, it's the one place maybe where the ego isn't in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's supposed to be sort of disabled by the default mode network. I don't know if ketamine works that way in the way that traditional psychedelics do, but the address of the ego is disabled. And so, but you are mind manifesting.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
Like, so
And in that
makes sense.
space, though, the thought of, and I was there enough, Pete was there enough as a separate to kind of engage with it. It's like talking to ChatGPT 92. And I was like, well, that's a good one. Could you offend ChatGPT 92? Like, that's a different experiment because that's all knowledge.
Yeah.
But like something that transcends knowledge and transcends being and non-being, as we said.
Yeah.
Transcends all human categories of thought. And when you start saying, like, can I offend you or upset you?
Right.
Do you need my reverence?
Yeah.
Do you need my ritual?
Right.
Do you need me to stop saying fuck so much?
Yeah.
It's the funniest joke in the world when you're, and it doesn't have to be, in fact, it often isn't on drugs. And I'm happy to say,
Right.
A Course in Miracles, when I'm doing my lesson, I'm often in a very similar place. Not often, but maybe 1 out of 50. I'll be, and you're there. And you're like, and what sucks is Pete can't come, because Pete wants to come take notes and bring it back. But he doesn't get to come.
Right.
So you're in this place where Pete doesn't get to come. And you're like, shit, I'd love to report this and tell Jaymee about it. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's this place. And when the problem with this God, this model of God, and I'm working on a joke about it, is like I sort of miss my old God, the ego God, because when I could impress him or anger him, we had an engagement. When it was like the Bourne movies, and God is in the room with the computers, and they're going, he's masturbating again, swarm, swarm, swarm. That was so much more understandable. I'm like, my God is like a guy you go to a football game with, and he's wearing both jerseys.
And he's naked somehow.
And somehow also naked. Or like, you ever have drinks or something with somebody who doesn't talk shit or doesn't want to like if I wanted to bond quickly with Lou.
And who is this fucking Lou?
Lou is just, he's a parent that goes to the same school. His kid goes to the same school as my daughter.
Yeah. No, and I invited him here today.
He's gone.
He left.
He's long gone.
Oh my God.
But if I wanted to bond with him, and I'll still do this, the best way for me to find people who are like me is to kind of like talk a little shit.
Sure.
Like, what don't you like?
But then you also find
you
where
laugh.
they don't do that, and they're a little
That's
deeper,
interesting too.
right?
But if they won't talk shit as a rule, and that's a little bit like my God is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's the friend that you keep going like, yeah, but the Mormons are kooky, right? And they're like, here's God doesn't. I can't.
God's
speak
into
for-
kinky shit.
God doesn't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
When you say,
Yes.
do you love Pete?
Yeah.
God doesn't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
And that isn't very satisfying to the ego. I want him to know Pete.
Yeah.
So when I first got into strict or true, I guess you could say, non-dualism, if it's one thing has no awareness of anything else.
Right.
So all separation is just a phantom. And it happened like this. All the great teachers say this. That's reality. It'll happen and it's over.
Yeah.
But we're just kind of experiencing it.
Yeah. Right.
Like a weird,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
So God doesn't know, but it's a paradox.
Yeah.
Because on the ketamine experience, I went in with this intention to kind of be like, does God love Pete? And the answer was two things, and they're contradictory.
Yeah.
One was, God doesn't know what you mean when you say Pete.
That's right.
Perfect oneness, which is ineffable. You can't even think about it.
Yeah.
Oneness can't know an object named Pete.
Right.
It just...
Yeah.
But then the beautiful paradox that I wasn't expecting was, it was like saying to water, will you get anything in this yard wet? Love only loves. So even if I'm bringing in, which I was, the idea of Pete, that light shined on anything that I brought it. So as long as I believe in Pete, you could say, yes, God loves Pete.
Right.
And yes,
Right.
your life is important and all that stuff.
Right.
But the ultimate reality, as far as I know, is God has no idea what you're talking about.
No Pete, no Jaymee.
And when I first started flirting with that idea, A Course in Miracles used to scare the hell out of me. And it took I'm on lesson like 250 something.
Oh, sweet. I did the course.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
So I'm I got 100 left.
250 is deep.
I'm like 100, 110 left. By the way, I think you have to read the text, and I think you have to listen to Kenneth Wapnick lecture on it. So I'm not saying you have to.
Yeah.
I had to understand or try to understand.
Yeah.
But it used to scare me. I used to have to take
I
breaks.
prefer listening to Marianne Williamson presidential speeches.
That's the best way.
That's how you can know where the Course of Miracles actually is at play in the world and how it's in play in the world, what it looks like at that level.
Yes, you want to see it in a debate. Sure. Well, it's funny. Marianne is one of the reasons why so many people know about it, and she's lovely in so many ways. And whatever. That's not what you were saying.
No.
What?
Could you give me a water? That big water?
Oh, I'll have one.
Yeah, it's right there. You got one, Pete. Right?
I used to
at your feet, Pete.
Oh, it's at your feet, Pete. Look at this. It just used to scare me, and I'm saying that. Like sometimes it's scary to go like, well, distance doesn't exist. Let's feel our feet. Let's feel our hands. That can be frightening. But the more, I will say to your point about the sewing it into your tapestry,
Yeah.
the more you try to ingest the seeming bad news that God doesn't know
Who the fuck
who
you
are.
Right.
You push through that and you get to the other side and you go, that's not what this is.
I am God.
Yeah, what's looking out your eyes is what we're talking about.
That's right.
And my
Krishna Das said that in the Yogananda movie, and that was the first time I had heard that. It was
Yeah.
at the end of the film, and I'm like, and he got told that by someone in India. Like, what are you talking about?
He
Where's
said
the
he
guru?
missed his guru, and they said he's looking at your eyes right now.
Yes.
And that's one of my favorites too.
Oh,
It's also
mine
in
too.
his the Krishna Das documentary. That's where I saw it.
Heart, One Track Heart.
One Track Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a great movie.
It's amazing.
But when I had my puritanical urge was to be like, I don't do a lot of drugs. I actually don't. But when I do, I go for it. No, I'm just saying- no.
Dude, when you met my partner, you immediately got her you shared with her your love of nicotine gum. And you said that it helped her write a book, and she loved it.
She's ripping into it.
She bought it back.
Yeah.
She's never been a
chewing
smoker.
it right now. I've never been a smoker either. Yeah,
but that was just a great Pete story. I mean, like her meeting you, and then that being the first few minutes, you and
Pete's
Val.
a good salesman because you know how I know he's selling me stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck with him.
Yeah.
But we could talk about that. But when I smoked 5-MeO, and I did it in a very ritualized setting.
Oh, nice. Was that here in the Valley?
It wasn't here, no.
Cool.
But it was so profound that you think you're going to be like catapulted to heaven, or like the Starship Enterprise. You're going to go through light speed.
Teleport.
Yeah, you're going to go somewhere. And this thing said there's nowhere to go.
Oh, that's the best
And the
message.
only way to talk about it is the impediments to where you already are removed. And you recognize, and I think this is what we'll all realize at the end of our lives, maybe before we die, who knows, is that you were there the whole time. It's very Wizard of Oz. And God was there the whole time.
Right.
And so to go away from the strict non-dual, God doesn't know about you. When you're suffering, where's God? God is you suffering. You are the suffering.
Yeah.
You're
That's
suffering.
right.
God is suffering with you.
Yeah. Right.
And in you and as you. It's
Yeah.
something Richard Rohr says. With you, in you, and as you.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's not you weren't abandoned. You are God experiencing that suffering.
Yeah.
So, but when I went, it's so silly to say you went there, but it was a death experience. It was the most extreme ego death, complete vanishing. Talk about Pete can't come. But I was like, I went in. And that in that I went to is the same in through which I'm experiencing all of this.
Right.
And it's, so death is a returning into the essence. What is essential to you, what never leaves, what was there when I was 8 and is here right now.
Yeah.
And you go there. So it's not frightening. You can trust it. So the mantra I came with going into my 5 a.m. experience, and which has profound meaning to me now after it, is I trust myself. Meaning, and I think this is key, it's the prodigal son, it's the Garden of Eden. It's like you need to recognize that you don't have to be afraid of God, and you don't have to be afraid of love. And the way out isn't around, it's through.
Yeah.
You have to say, yes, you fucking are.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't you think it was going to kill you like everything fucking else is trying to kill you?
Yeah. I like to ask myself sometimes, I mean, these days, like, who are you if you're naked and alone in the desert with no hope in sight? Like, who are you then? You know, all these mannerisms and the way we're talking to our children and the way that we're talking with our partners and the way that we're carrying out business. Who are you if all that's taken away and you're stranded and there's no hope? Who are you in that moment?
Yeah.
And how close are you to actually feeling safe? And that's sort of a measurement that I've been using. And also just like the idea of what you're talking about, of that, you know, death is a returning in almost, you know. I think about the example that the shower thing gave me the other day of like we're individualized form, not to experience itself as a person, but, you know.
Just checking the time.
Yeah, of course. No.
In case it was 2:30, I had to pick up my daughter.
Oh,
at
2:30.
It was. It's not.
Great.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's 1.
Oh, is it?
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's 1. Okay, great. No, not at all. I think about that this conversation, Pete, that we're having could be like the purple of a flower in 100 years. That we are the energies of the universe that have taken this form, and then when we dissolve back in, who knows where these energies end up next?
Oh, interesting.
And I'm not talking about our incarnation necessarily, but, you know, form, like fire, water, earth, air, atoms, you know, all that stuff, the energies of the universe.
That's a beautiful idea.
Isn't
like, what
it?
are all these flowers? Is it a sermon the Buddha gave?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also just like we were saying at the beginning, like, where's all this going? It's not going anywhere. It's not getting recorded anywhere.
Yeah,
There's not like a measurement of like Pete and Jaymee were here at this time, and this is where all things were declared in the universe.
Yeah.
Like it's being written down nowhere. It's going nowhere. And that's helped me a lot with my pursuit of, I don't know, success or fame or anything like that, recognition. It's just like, where's it going to go in the end?
Yeah.
Like, where are the people, where's a great philosopher from 1920?
It's what Ira Glass says, name 5 people from the 15th century.
Right.
And you can't do it. It's...
And also, the last thing within this concept also is like going back to the desert reference. Who are you? You know, when we have all these ideas about God, and you've expressed and spirituality, and we've both shared a bunch today, and some really beautiful things have been said. And I think about also dementia. And I think, what if your memory was wiped completely and you had no idea about anything? What are you then?
Right. Well, that's why it can't be contingent on remembering anything we're saying.
Right.
That's what Ram Dass says. He goes, I wish I could write this down. I'm going to forget it. And he goes, I hope you will.
Yeah. Because it's so much fun to remember, he used to say.
Well, that too. I think it's because it's not about intellectual understanding. And what Richard Rohr said is, if it is, what about people with learning disabilities or somebody who has no short-term memory or long-term? What about them? Or somebody with dementia?
Yeah.
But what you see, and this happened with Ram Dass and his father, he had something like dementia, and he saw a softening. He saw a returning to naked awareness. And not always, but, you know, sometimes you can see that softening. I can't speak to that, but that's what he saw with his father.
You know, I was going through something with my father was very ill, and at one point he had been hospitalized for a while, and they said that he was in a coma that they had induced, and he had developed an infection, all this stuff, and it was looking not good, and it had been long and arduous, and my father and I at that time, it was very heavy on my heart, to think about like this happening. And I was also not changing my life at all. So I was still seeing 15 people in the week for hourly sessions while this was going on. As a matter of fact, I was in the shower when I got the news that he might not make it. And I got out and I put on Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles. I put on that song, turn off your mind, relax and float downstream. And I just sang it while crying in the bathroom. This is 5 minutes before I'm about to sit in a session with a couple to help them with their marriage. And all of this makes total sense to me at this point, that there isn't a grieving spot. There isn't a currency of turning this moment into something else and getting out of work, or like, oh, I can't, I'm affected. This has all been spiritual practice long enough to where that was another moment, and my heart broke, and then I sat in the session. It was very effective. But my point is around this is that around that time, it was so heavy and it had been going and going. I had been really active for months, and I hadn't had a break, and I was finally getting a break on this one weekend. And it was the weekend where my father might not make it, and my kids weren't coming up that weekend, and so I thought I was going to have a moment to just kind of rest. And this is Friday night. A homeless group of bees that were without their hive took refuge in our attic.
They were unhived.
Thank you for we need to recognize the unhived communities out there.
The unhived bees.
They were unhived, and they were looking for a home, and they found it in our attic. And so all of a sudden, our attic is and the bees are coming in one by one to the house. And this is supposed to be my weekend of rest, where I can actually sit with my feelings and all this. And being a Buddhist, and not just being a Buddhist, but
a nudist.
Yeah.
A lot of nudity in your stories.
That's true. So with ants, you were talking about ants and demolishing them and all that. And I started doing something different a few years ago, where I would, like, if they were underneath the sink and there's a bunch of them, I'd like just slide a piece of paper under a group of them and try and shuffle them out. And if some got hurt, then, so be it. But at least I was like trying, kind of thing. And I kind of built that over time to where now when this moment finds me and I'm broken, I'm just broken over all this stuff. I'm sitting with incomprehensibleness, and I'm also somebody who helps people with their trauma. And so all week I'm sitting with all that perceivably, even though I'm not feeling it. But I'm in this heavy moment, and then the bees show up. And this is where humor, I was in on the joke. If I wasn't in on the joke about this moment, this would have been a catastrophe. As a matter of fact, it would have maybe even pushed me to the brink of just like going, why even be here? This is just insane that this is life. But instead, when that happened, it was so absurd that this would happen, and that it would happen to a Buddhist who, for the next 24 hours, instead of resting, would be on his feet taking bee after bee out. And that's what my partner and I did for our Saturday. Just one after another, taking the bees out. And when that happened, the thing that you're talking about happened also. And this is like, I'm not saying I'm enlightened, but this was like a moment that I've read that are very similar, of like a touching into maybe what could be. Whereas I'm in this situation, it's someone else's hell. It's a hell of mine from all my past, being this person. But in this moment, there's no one to blame. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing else to do but be myself, who is the person who would take out these bees. I can't forfeit that at this point. And there's nothing else to do, nowhere to go. And here I am doing this. And in that space, I found that I transcended Jaymee in that moment. I transcended the me that was just like, this is too much and all that. I was just operating from basic goodness, taking care of life without this heavy story in the background looming, And that was incredible. And I've now seen that, much like Ram Dass talks about, as sort of like, he talks about it was Maharaji talking about the LSD experiences, saying like, this will allow you to visit with Christ, but then you have to come back down. It would be better to become Christ. Yeah. And this is Maharaji saying this, who is not a Christian, but who said, meditate like Christ. And then whenever somebody would point at him, he'd say, who do you think you're looking at? And they'd say, well, you, Maharaji. And he'd go, no, Buddha. So like he's pointing to all the other guys too. You know, anyway, so touching into that, that's like it's also part of my prayer practice in the morning to think of all the people that have ever harmed me or are going to harm me. I picture them all every morning. I picture the person who's going to hurt my children in the future, the bullies at the school now. You know, I picture Donald Trump and all of the people who no one's praying for. I pray for every morning. The forgotten in jails and the people who are just dastardly that no one should forgive. I picture all their faces that they may awaken, and I practice in that way. Not, you know, it's not like I'm trying to make them good people or something, but I'm trying to see them all as versions of myself. I'm trying to practice what we're talking about here in seeing everything as one thing. And over time now, driving here today, there's a sign that says, "Let's go, Brandon," and Trump sucks. And instead of, you know, being how I was raised, which now could
Biden
be
sucks.
Biden sucks. Yeah.
Right?
What did I say?
Trump sucks.
Oh, Trump sucks. No, it says Biden sucks. And then it says, "Let's go, Brandon," and all this. And I look at it and I go, I laugh, I giggle now because like I go, oh, that's so cute. Trump sucks. Yeah. Like that's a cute expression. I mean, Biden sucks. It's kind of cute. Yeah. It's like, what, that's the strength now of the resistance, is just saying that something sucks, like describing a bad movie or something. That's true. You know, now I can look at it as cute, and I can see that like someone like Trump, who I just see the backstory. I just can't see anything other than Joaquin Phoenix early in the movie of Joker. That's what I see when I look at Trump, and I see how it all happened. And so it's a happening. Trump's a happening, and what am I going to do with it? Stop him? Yeah. No, I mean, maybe, you know, find a strategic way, like in Fight Club, to dose him or something. Like, no, that's not going to work, because what would he do after a psychedelic experience anyway? Who knows? Yeah. It's for me to see these people all as the same. Everything is the same. The bees is the same as Trump, is the same as, you know, the tree here and the wind. Like, and it all sounds silly if you don't know me. You're just getting introduced to me. It's like another guy in a beard talking big ideas or something, you know? I don't know if try it. Yeah. I'm not saying do it. Right. I'm saying try it. Like,
no, what you do for your family and the people that have hurt you and everybody was inspiring to me. It's very beautiful. I was like, I'm going to start doing that. And then Val, she was like, yeah, but also put a picture of yourself as a 7-year-old on the puja.
Definitely. Definitely. That's a practice I've had my mom do, and a lot of my students, is I have them take a picture of themselves and from their childhood and put it on their altar and make it tea every morning. And the thing is that you're sacrificing just a little bit of your awakening, the thing that awakens you, your coffee or your tea, and you're pouring a little bit into the past and you're offering it. And the thing is that this experiment is really trippy, because within a week of looking at it every day, the face changes. You see something new every time. You know, you can look into and see something, and then much like what we're talking about, time sort of being a notion, an invention, and all moments just being here and now. So all former Pete moments are here now. So in this case, you know, looking at this, when we do this practice and we change our attitude toward ourselves in the past, it's just like Marty McFly and Back to the Future, going back to the past, altering it a little bit, and then you come back to the present, and the present is changed. Yeah. Things have changed. Wow. I've practiced this over and over again, that we can affect the past without having to go back there in anything other than our mind, or in a simple little practice like this.
Well, where else is the past?
Right.
And where was the past when it was happening?
Right.
It's all here and now. That's really good. And we can invent rock and roll.
That's right. That's right. Which is the blues.
That's right.
You know, you can keep going back and back, which I like to do. Then the celebrity aspect of things, I feel like, I imagine there's a lot of people that want your attention, and I don't know if you have the kind of incarnation within your celebrity that it's kind of like Jerry Seinfeld talking about it, saying like, what do you expect? Like, you're in public and you're a celebrity. I don't get mad at people for, you know, but do you feel sort of, is it all congruent? Like the negativity of being a recognizable person and the positivity, is it all just in a congruent wash? Or, what could you say critically about celebrity?
I don't really experience any, it's like being tall. I don't experience a downside.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. If there is it's so rare. It does happen, but it's rare that somebody might go too far or ask too much of you. What
about what's being thrown at you? Do you feel you can keep up with everything? I mean, does it feel pretty manageable?
Like, what do you mean?
Just like requests or,
Yeah, I think that stuff is good. Everybody, whether they're in the public eye or not, needs to learn how to say no and sometimes when to say nothing and just kind of let it play out. I think that's really important. The power of doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I don't mean ignoring people. I just mean like, let me think about that. And
right.
Just don't do anything for the minute.
It's good to not do something if you don't have a response. And most of us don't take up the opportunity.
Val's been helping me with that. If it's not a fuck yes, it's a no.
Right.
But that only works at a certain level. When I was starting out, everything was like I guess. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to drive to Peoria to do comedy in a biker bar.
Yeah.
But you do it for later. Now my life is a little bit more like, Actually, that's not even true. A lot of things I do aren't fuck yeses. But if it's optional, I go with is it a fuck yes? Then it's a no.
I'm just lucky that Conan wasn't able to fit you in.
To do his podcast?
Yeah, I heard you.
Yeah.
I heard you like a week ago on your podcast say that you were bummed because of the special coming up, and Val was right there to just like be so sweet and be your biggest fan in that moment.
Right, and also, how much does Conan have to do for me? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can't
right.
be mad at him.
No, of course. No, you weren't mad.
I wasn't mad, but I was joking that like I wanted to do his podcast again. But his podcast, when I did it, was at the beginning, and now it's like, Tom Hanks, so like I completely get it.
Yeah.
It's totally fair.
What was a big influence that would be weird? Like, I'll give you one of mine growing up. What's it called? Band-Aid. Not We Are the World. Do They Know It's Christmas?
Mm-hmm.
My mother bought, back in the day when that came out, she bought not only the vinyl, but she bought the VHS, which came with a behind the scenes of the making of, which I don't know why. I loved watching making of stuff when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to see.
Me too.
Yeah, did you?
Making of Terminator 2.
Oh, right.
Like
Anything like that. Yeah, I would always watch to understand it further. And so there's this making of the Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas? And it's all the bands together for that one day recording. And I would watch, and there was this language that they all had with each other, the bands. I always think I wanted to be in on that, in on the secret jokes and the kind of like what you're doing with Lou today, that kind of thing. I wanted to have that kind of life where you're like, you have a secret joke with somebody who you're in a band with, and it's you against the world kind of. And so that was a big influence on my life.
Yeah.
And even comedy, because they're the bands are all joking with each other, and they really know how to, especially the Brits in that circumstance. But what was an odd one like that, an unobvious influence? Because that one changed my life, actually. In so many ways, I can trace so many things to that.
Like a comedic influence that's kind of unlikely?
Yeah.
Wow. Because I don't know, I'll just talk through some. I was obsessed with the movie UHF.
Oh, yeah.
Weird Al made, but that's not really an unlikely influence. The Simpsons, I think we all owe a debt to The Simpsons, obviously.
I did a song on The Simpsons.
You did?
I got a song in a scene that Homer's debating. It's an episode that's in season 27. I think it's the opener. It's called Every Man's Dream. Yeah. Every Man's Dream, and it's Homer is falling asleep a lot, and he at work, and they think he has narcolepsy, so they prescribe him GHB, but they tell him it's like a party drug, and he's considering taking this party drug, and Marge has left him, and he's at in a bar, and he's sitting with this girl who's trying to get him to take it because she's like a party girl, and that's where my song is playing.
Wow.
I know, and
that's so cool.
It was so cool, and it's like such a dream. I watched it when I was younger, and then to see it in this, and then to have it also be mimicking, in a weird way, something that I was in because I was in a divorce at the time, that, and taking GHB. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, to have that happen, but then nothing. I mean, just it happened. And it's great, and
you mean it didn't lead to anything?
Yeah, and I'm just happy to tell Pete Holmes now years later because we both like to show, but it got me nowhere really, other than just having a little story. And now you've done that. Where next is to go? The ego says,
Well, how you feel right now is how you feel about your life. That's an Eckhart Tolle thing. So what it got you is how you feel about it right now.
Right. That's right.
Speaking of which, man, I'm getting foggy-eyed. I think I'm dead.
Yeah, perfect.
I didn't eat today.
Oh, yeah.
We're all good. I'm just letting you know that we're going to have diminishing returns on my own clarity.
Okay. So you're trying to figure out the weird influence and the
well,
fog.
I'm going in. That's how I noticed. I'm like, and my vision's getting kind of blurry, and I'm like, I think we got to wrap up.
Perfect. I spent Pete Holmes down to the bud.
Well, it's funny. I do a long podcast, but I'm pretty good at going like, I think you smoked me to the filter.
Nice, man. Well, you gave a lot. You really gave a lot.
I'm going to think about that answer, though, because I wish I'm not one of those people. Mulaney actually comes to mind. They have like this weird appreciation for some niche thing that him and Nick Kroll loved. I've never been like that, so I don't know the answer. A lot of it was like Family Matters and Full House and these not cool things that shaped me and made me go like, not only comedy, but I liked the control, the package, I feel like show business is a control freak's paradise. One of the memories I have of shooting Crashing was like, I have like a sound trauma. Like I'm not good with noise.
Oh yeah.
I can, you wouldn't know it, but like if there was a dog incessantly barking, it would just be bothering me more than it ought to.
Yeah.
And so shooting Crashing, forget it. Like I wrote everything that everybody's going to say.
Yeah.
We tell them where to move.
Yeah.
We're going to do it multiple times till we get it right. I mean, you can see the fantasy of that.
Sure.
Reality is what's going to happen? And this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then there was like, I think it was a guy on a loud motorcycle revving his engine. And I just watched as a producer was like, can somebody tell that guy to stop? And I was like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. It's somebody's job. And if they say no, they give them money. Like it will stop.
Wow.
It will stop.
Right.
I don't mean with violence. I just mean like there's it's not the mafia.
If you didn't quiet down.
If something happened to your bike. But like that would happen. There was a unhoused person that just runs around the village screaming, and they'd give him a couple $100 to just go scream somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And as a boy who felt out of control of reality a lot, I like to say my favorite escape room was junior high. I loved that about it. Mm-hmm. So when I watch things like Full House and there's a conflict and then it's resolved in the same episode, I know that's what's fake about it. But I really was like, it's funny, now the art I try to create is like not resolving it. You can do that too, but that is also a control. You're like, it's unresolved, but I could have and I didn't. So you're still getting off on that. It's nice.
I feel like our generation is raised, I think that part of our anxiety issue is having been raised with sitcoms. Because there's always that thing where, like, Jack Tripper walks in the wrong door and all hell breaks loose kind of thing.
Yeah.
And how are they going to get it back? And that feeling of, like, how are they going to get this back? How is this going to get resolved?
Yeah.
How much of that do we feel in the everyday?
Yeah.
Based in these sitcom scenarios or even films, there's always how are they going to get back?
It's the dream we all had. I don't mean the fantasy. I mean, it's like the dream that we all had the same 30-minute dream.
Yeah.
And of course it ripples out into reality.
Yeah.
And it can break your heart. There's a downside to that because if there was a conflict and I went up to my room, my parents didn't come up and sit on the edge of my bed and go, how did that make you feel? I noticed you seemed a little so there can be an ache.
Now it's
but
your
that's
job.
where full circle, Byron Katie, the work, couldn't recommend it more. Mm-hmm. Parents are supposed to check in on their kids after a conflict. Is that true? Well, they didn't. So it's not true.
Right.
How does it make you feel when you believe that parents are supposed to check in on their kids after a conflict? It makes me feel abandoned and lonely and abused and shame and embarrassment and anger, pity, self-pity.
Yeah.
How would you feel if you didn't believe that parents are supposed to check in on their children? What if you believed what actually happened? I'd feel free.
Right. That's right.
I'd feel spacious. I'd feel happy. I'd laugh at myself.
Yeah.
And what is the opposite? Parents shouldn't check in on their kids. You know how we know that's true? Because it happened.
Right. Right. You know the barking in the distance, and that bothers you? You know, another way of looking at it also is that you care. It's weird. It's a nagging caring.
Yeah, it's like saying hate is like love in disguise, and my anxiety is actually going like, I can't really tune this out.
Is that dog okay?
Yeah.
You might even be asking.
I don't give a shit about dogs. And we've covered that. It's more, will someone kill that dog?
You mean it's not like, it sounds like it's come from a long distance to tell us something really important.
Well, it's so funny. It's what my voice really says about a barking dog is that dog doesn't care about me, which is that's what I mean about like find the voice.
Yeah.
What is the belief? This is all Katie. What is the belief? That dog should respect my desire to be quiet?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. So let's laugh at it.
I will end with the story related to this. There was a barking in the distance, but at my mom's house in Joshua Tree, and she was home alone, and the barking was a crow, and it was making a sound in repetition that she hadn't heard a crow making before.
Yeah.
And so after a while, she was really annoyed by this, same as Pete. You know, it was like, just like, can you stop? I live in the quiet desert. You know, why are you going off like this? So she went outside to look, and the crow was barking because there was a cat that had climbed all the way up a telephone pole and was like stuck at the top, and the crow was bringing attention to the cat. So my mom is the only one there seeing this thing, and so she's like, well, what do we do? I guess call the fire department? But then they go, well, no, you got to call the Southern California Edison. And then they go, well, you got to call, you know, it's like this chain. But finally, they get a bucket there to get, you know, and a crane to get the cat down. Turned out the cat was pregnant, very pregnant, and it was the next door neighbor's cat. So when my mom, when the kittens arrived, they gave my mom a cat, and that's my mom's cat, Willow.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of like...
So she wasn't saving one cat, she was saving like 5 cats.
Exactly.
Wow.
But it was the annoyance and the caring enough to be curious to go check it out that maybe changed her relationship to annoyances in the distance forever.
Wow.
Maybe.
I can't stress this enough. I don't care about the dog. I want to be very clear here.
Hey, man, thanks for all of this.
My pleasure. Honestly, always to talk to you.